The real heiress had just returned and was already demanding to break off her engagement, insisting on marrying some poor construction worker. Why should she stay with the Fu family? She's already stolen over a decade of my life. Must she keep stealing more? She declared with absolute certainty. He'll build a business empire one day. The so-called crown prince of Beijing's elite circles is nothing compared to him. But on the very last night before departure, our parents were shaking with rage, but they didn't want to lose this advantageous marriage alliance. The true heiress, Olivia, suddenly went mad. They were about to kick me out, but ended up having to make me, the fake heiress, take her place. She rushed into the living room, her face filled with terror, and cried, "Cancel my engagement to the Crown Prince of Beijing's elite circle, immediately. Go ahead and marry the Crown Prince of Beijing's elite circle. You can have all the family jewels, just don't embarrass our family name." Everyone stared at her in astonishment. The true heiress sneered, "He already has a cherished love, you'd just be a trophy wife if you marry him, you'll never find happiness." She had been completely smitten the moment she laid eyes on Silas, insisting she would marry no one else. Later, the crown prince held me close as he bid millions on an emerald, all just to see me smile. Mrs. Fu grew even more concerned. "Olivia, did you have a nightmare? Calm down, let Aunt Wang get you a glass of water." The true heiress glared with red-rimmed eyes. "Don't you have anything to say to me?" They even suggested taking Olivia to see a doctor, but she fought back fiercely, adamant that nothing was wrong with her. I froze. Good people deserve a peaceful life. I'm not crazy, and I'm calling off this engagement. I'd rather die than marry Silas. Even her father was baffled. "What has Silas ever done to you that you're so desperate to break it off? His family is offering 100 million in bride price." I was fully prepared to pack my bags and leave the Fu residence. Olivia couldn't explain why. Her eyes welled up, and tears streamed down like pearls. "He won't stay this successful forever. I've endured over a decade of hardship already. I refuse to go through that again." The true heiress, Olivia, couldn't stand me. When our parents suggested I might stay, she burst into tears and nearly sobbed herself unconscious. She was crying so hard she could barely catch her breath. Everyone was completely baffled. I was the only one who knew what had happened. Olivia had been reborn, in her previous life. After the true heiress Olivia was recognized and brought back, she threw tantrums insisting on marrying Silas. But married life didn't turn out as she had hoped. Silas had a long-time crush he could never forget, and he always kept Olivia at arm's length. As if that wasn't enough, within a few years he went bankrupt. The Fu family also got dragged down by Silas's downfall, losing over half of their liquid assets. Olivia's days of living as a wealthy socialite came to an abrupt end. "I'm not marrying him no matter what you say. I'd rather have never been acknowledged as part of this family than marry him. His heart belongs to someone else. He doesn't care for me at all. If I marry him, I'll just be a trophy wife." Olivia threw a massive tantrum, dropping all pretense of politeness. Even before marrying Silas, she's determined to call off this wedding. But this marriage was never just about Olivia and Silas. The Silas family had already come to discuss the wedding arrangements several times. Her parents absolutely refused to let Olivia break off the engagement. It was such a favorable match. Those fleeting flings are just him sowing wild oats before settling down. Once you're married, you'll be the legitimate eldest daughter-in-law of the Silas family. No one could ever overshadow your position. The Silas family had already given the Fu family far too many tangible benefits: the land in the southern district, the downtown buildings, and the assets from the Silas family were practically handed over to the Fu family for free. But these were just minor perks. The real prize was the port and the shipping channels. If the Fu family wants to expand their product distribution, they still have to rely on the Silas family. Mr. Fu couldn't help but think what a mess this was. Olivia had been so well behaved when she first returned, but now she was acting like she'd been possessed. "If you refuse to marry him, not only will the Fu family have to give everything back, but do you really think the Silas family would take it lightly?" "I won't marry him. A marriage without emotional foundation is like a house built on sand. Silas doesn't even like me. I refuse, and besides, his business, it's risky." "How could it be risky? The Silas family has been established in Beijing's elite circles for generations. It is risky, it definitely is." Mother Fu's soft spot for her beloved daughter ultimately showed. "But we just got Olivia back after all this time. If she's unwilling, then so be it. Let's drop it if the child doesn't want to marry. You really do care about her, don't you?" "But if she doesn't marry him, she'll be losing out on more than 100 million. At that moment, I was dragging my suitcase, thinking about how to make money after leaving the Fu family. My mind was completely occupied with the thought of having to support myself from now on. Olivia's eyes were red from crying as she called out loudly to stop me just as I was about to leave the Fu residence. Doesn't the Fu family have 2 daughters? If I hadn't come back, it would have been Aloan getting married anyway. Let her do it, everyone was stunned. If she marries, I'll allow her to stay with the Fu family, she's been living off them for years. It's time she contributed something. Mr. and Mrs. Fu's expressions turned strange. Me too, I can hardly believe my luck. It's like winning the lottery. Initially, they wanted me to stay with the Fu family, but Olivia was dead set against it, so they gave me some money to appease her. Now they want to shift this marriage arrangement onto me, and expect me to stay with the Fu family. Olivia scanned the room and, seeing no objections, declared, then it's settled, Silas Aloan will be the one to marry. I have my own plans for marriage. Stay out of it. After hesitating for a long while, Mrs. Fu finally spoke up. Olivia, why don't you think it over? Is there really anyone better than Silas? Olivia waved her hand dismissively. No need for second thoughts. It's decided. I was so stunned that I dropped my suitcase, completely losing my grip on it. Seriously, things like this actually happen. Among the wealthy young heirs in Beijing's elite circles, Silas is not only the most handsome but also the richest. You could say he's straight out of a romance novel, and it wouldn't be an exaggeration. Besides, what's so bad about being a wealthy wife? Plenty of money, minimal responsibilities, a CEO husband with his unattainable crush. All I'd need to do is figure out how to spend my monthly allowance. That's definitely more comfortable than the years I've endured with the Fu family. As for bankruptcy, isn't that something that won't happen for years anyway? Even the loose change from his pockets could sustain me for several lifetimes. This is like manna from heaven. I gave Olivia a strange look, and she grew visibly uncomfortable under my gaze. You think this is some great marriage? Silas is in love with someone else. He won't even glance your way after you're married. He might even have some hidden ailment. Now I'm even more confused. Isn't this even better? Dad Fu also sighed. You should be the one to marry him. We really haven't treated you fairly in this matter. We'll make it up to you with a larger dowry later. My thoughts were completely different from Olivia's. All I could picture was Silas' handsome face and piles upon piles of money. Thank you, Mom and Dad. Thank you, sister. I bowed in gratitude, and the butler promptly moved my belongings back to my original room. Olivia pouted. What an idiot. And here I thought it was something good. The Fu family had already been preparing for the marriage alliance with the Silas family. The only difference was that now I was the one bustling about instead of Olivia. Having been raised by the Fu family for over a decade, I'd acquired all the poise of an heiress, combined with how seriously I took this marriage. Having rehearsed every scenario countless times in private, Silas's family couldn't find a single fault when they first met me. Mrs. Gu even took my hand and said, I always thought Aloan was the right choice. We've watched her grow up. We know her through and through. She wasn't entirely pleased with the arranged marriage swap to begin with, but lately, she's been hearing how Olivia has been acting like she's lost her mind, running off to the construction site every day. Now she keeps muttering, that Fu girl may carry the family name, but since she wasn't raised in the Fu household, her judgment is clearly unsound. Olivia has been making waves in the capital, becoming the talk of high society. The heiress, instead of enjoying her comfortable life, chooses to wander around construction sites under the scorching sun every day. This news has reached everyone's ears. She even paid a lunchbox vendor near the site to let her sit there. The sight of a young socialite perched on a tiny stool in her Dior outfit, surrounded by sweaty construction workers, struck everyone as utterly bizarre. Numerous influencers secretly filmed her with the hashtag #RichGirlLovesRuggedMan, which briefly trended on social media. The Fu family found it humiliating and forbade Olivia from going, yet Olivia insisted on going anyway. Even when men stared with lecherous and ill-intentioned looks, even if it would create a negative impression of the Fu family, even in the sweltering heat of nearly 40 degrees Celsius outside, Olivia insisted on going to the construction site to see Jax, rain or shine, to bring him some things. Jax also found her behavior odd. At first, he thought she was joking and outright refused Olivia's kindness. But with Olivia's persistence, he reluctantly accepted it despite his initial hesitation. No one could understand what had gotten into her, and the incident caused quite a stir. Even the Fu family's reputation was tarnished. Olivia just said, the chosen one is right here, you just don't get it. This way, I can save him when he's still at his lowest, and then I'll be his one and only white moonlight. Don't look down on him now. In the future, even the so-called crown princes of Beijing's elite circles will have to step aside for him. Fu's mother was shocked and showed her displeasure right at the dinner table, saying, "You won't go learn the piano, and you won't even take a manager position at your dad's company. You don't act like a wealthy heiress at all. Have you lost your mind?" Olivia scoffed. "None of that is useful. It's all just for show. When you're broke, can you really make a living playing piano in a hotel or slaving away at some company? I've fallen for Jax, and I want to be with him." "Who, Jax?" No one at the table could place who that was. "The name is too common," the butler chimed in. "He's just a construction worker at the site the young mistress often visits." Mr. Fu slammed his chopsticks down, his mustache bristling with anger. "Nonsense. If you don't like Silas, I can find you another suitable match from a wealthy family. Are you seriously telling me you want to marry that construction worker?" "I have no daughter." He gasped for breath. And the dinner table descended into chaos once again. Olivia protested tearfully. "Dad, just listen to me this once. I would never do anything to harm the Fu family. You'll see in a couple of years. You disgraceful child, you utter disgrace." Father Fu was so agitated he was on the verge of passing out. I immediately called our family doctor and had the butler bring out the ventilator. Mother Fu also kept urging Olivia to leave first. After she left, Father Fu finally let out a heavy sigh. I heard him holding Mother Fu's hand, his face full of resignation as he said, "Perhaps if they're not raised by your side, they really don't feel close to you." Exactly, Eloan would never act like Olivia. Thank goodness for Eloan. "Don't worry, Eloan, the Fu family will provide a generous dowry for you." Olivia was determined to marry Jax, who was working construction at the time. Thanks to her persistence, Jax finally became her boyfriend. She thought she was living out a slow-burn romance that would eventually win his heart, yet Jax was the one reaping tangible benefits from their relationship. He splurged her money without a care, and she seemed perfectly content with it. Who knows what spell he cast on her? Jax couldn't even afford a betrothal gift and earned a meager $3,000 a month from his dead-end job. She was still over the moon about marrying him. "You just don't get it. Fortunes change like the tides. I've read this story before." And Jax is the undisputed male lead. The day she brought Jax to the Fu family residence, Mr. Fu had no intention of letting this grubby young man step foot inside. "Olivia, how many times do I have to tell you, if you don't like Silas, there are hundreds of eligible young men from good families for you to choose from. You two are nothing alike. You're a Fu by blood, even if you didn't grow up in this house. You're still a true heiress through and through." "What is he?" "He couldn't afford the car you're driving now even if he broke his back working for 8 lifetimes. But Olivia stood her ground, even threatening to take her own life if they refused. "If you won't let me marry Jax, I'll kill myself." "Silas, what even is Silas? In a few years, he won't even be worth as much as Jax's dog." Mom and Dad were completely exasperated by her dramatics again. I always did my best to avoid conflict with Olivia in the Fu household, but when Dad called the doctor again, I couldn't hold back. At the very least, right now, Silas is still the crown prince of Beijing's elite circles. Calling him a dog is a bit much, don't you think? "Humph, if I say it's a dog, then it's a dog. Just you wait and see." She even had the nerve to confidently set her wedding date for the same day as mine. "It's an auspicious date chosen by the master. Why should she get to use it and not me?" "Eloan, did you really think you could beat me in this lifetime? I'm the one who shares blood with Mom and Dad. You'll always be an outsider." Olivia was so self-assured that she completely missed Auntie Fu's hesitant expression. Auntie Fu had deliberately chosen these 2 dates so she could attend both events. She even insisted on making our parents choose between us. She made me laugh with frustration. "Do you really think our parents would choose a construction worker's wedding over Silas's, the crown prince of Beijing's elite circle? But our parents wouldn't attend your wedding either, would they? Your days are numbered. I'm telling you, Silas has a white moonlight. You'll just be a decorative piece if you go." I've heard this 1,000 times. I know. The weddings took place on the same day. Even though Auntie Fu secretly slipped Olivia a lot of gifts, it still paled in comparison to the Silas family outright renting an entire island. She only had her wedding at a regular hotel, and Jax's relatives from the village came and feasted like there was no tomorrow. Before the MC could even finish speaking, the afternoon had already descended into chaos. Wow, Jax really made it big, landing such a gorgeous wife. "Jax, don't forget your uncle when you make it big." I've never even tasted lobster this huge. They went wild, eating and drinking their fill while pocketing whatever they could, turning the beautifully arranged wedding venue into a complete mess. Olivia was utterly humiliated, wanting to leave the stage before the ceremony even ended. Jax grabbed her arm tightly. These are all my relatives. You insisted on marrying me, and now you're making a scene. Do you even want this marriage to work? Olivia had never been so humiliated. After grudgingly going through with the ceremony, she desperately tried calling her parents, but they wouldn't answer. Of course Mr. and Mrs. Fu wouldn't attend Olivia's wedding. They didn't even send the housekeeper or nanny. Silas' family arranged private jets for every guest, and even the party favors were worth 100,000 yuan each. Even as someone who's been a wealthy socialite for over 20 years, I was stunned by this display of wealth. The wedding dress was completely studded with diamonds. Not to mention the fireworks and drone displays during the ceremony that seemed to be scattered around like they were free, with butlers and staff everywhere. I didn't have to lift a finger the entire time. When I said, I do, the Silas family had magicians make flowers bloom across the entire island. My parents were beaming with joy, praising me non-stop for being such a good daughter. I was thrilled too, compared to my previous life when I was kicked out of the Fu family and had to struggle relentlessly just to make ends meet. This life truly feels like winning the lottery. On our wedding day, I finally got to know the Silas that Olivia had always looked down upon. From my days as a young lady of privilege to our engagement, I'd only ever seen him from a distance, never this close, with his broad shoulders, slim waist, and refined manners. Silas was the epitome of a wealthy gentleman molded by privilege. He loosened his tie, poured me a glass of warm water, and said he'd have dinner sent up to the room later. He seems a bit aloof and distant, but not as cold-hearted as Olivia made him out to be. So you're alone, you seem more normal than your sister. I burst out laughing. Huh? Silas rubbed his nose sheepishly. I met Olivia once. She gave me the cold shoulder right away, like I was some kind of filth. Come on. I'm a normal person, even for an arranged marriage. I wouldn't want to wed some unapproachable deity. Someone like you is just perfect. Finally, Silas made a strange face and asked, do you know why she looks down on me so much? After thinking for a moment, I replied, she said you're going to go bankrupt someday, and anyone with you would suffer through hard times. Silas let out a light chuckle, as if he had just heard the most ridiculous joke. What a moron. That reaction shows he's a decent person, even without romantic feelings. He'd make a good partner to work with. Silas is usually swamped with work. He just needs me to accompany him to important events, and I'm perfectly happy living the life of a wealthy wife. Having money is always a good thing, especially when you can spend it freely. After all, I've been reborn and know exactly when Silas will go bankrupt. Then I'll take the money and run. Olivia won't be doing so well. The man she believed was heaven's chosen one, Jax, was still broke and completely dependent on her handouts. She had to keep going back to the Fu family to plead poverty. When poverty comes in the door, love flies out the window. On my way back to the Fu residence, I literally bumped into Olivia. Gone were her latest high-fashion gowns and designer handbags. She was dressed with shocking simplicity. My hands have developed calluses, yet that haughty demeanor remains unchanged. Eloan. Must you always show off in front of me, dressed to the nines because you knew I was returning today? Why don't you just drape Silas's chandelier around your neck while you're at it? I let out an awkward chuckle. Having attended so many events with Silas, I'd grown accustomed to having professional stylists prepare me for every outing. I didn't know you were coming back, and I have no interest in targeting you. After I said that and put down the things I brought for Mom and Dad, Olivia got even angrier when she saw how dismissive I was being toward her. Eloan, if you know what's good for you, you should move all those things from the Silas family back to the Fu family. When the Silas family goes bankrupt, at least our family might still keep you fed. Mom angrily slammed her cup down. Arguing, always arguing. What's all this noise about? The moment you come back, it's nothing but unbearable racket. What's the deal with Eloan bringing all that stuff home? Silas family has given you more than enough. Meanwhile, Olivia, our family has been supporting you non-stop. If we weren't worried about you having to cook, we would have sent even more help your way. Goodness, it's a tragedy. What kind of lady has to cook for herself? Tell me, did you marry into that family just to suffer? Olivia looked somewhat embarrassed, but she bit her lip and maintained that stubborn expression. You don't understand, he's bound to make something of himself. When that happens, we could afford 80 chefs if we wanted. Mom, could you just give Jax a small company to manage? I'm sure he'd handle it brilliantly. Olivia, there's a limit to how much we can indulge you. That Jax didn't even finish high school. How could I possibly entrust a company to him? Olivia persisted. Mom, you wouldn't want me hauling bricks at construction sites with him every day, would you? What would people think of the Fu family then? Mrs. Fu hesitated. Though Olivia had been telling these stories about him being some overnight business prodigy, they sounded more far-fetched with each telling. I know there was this story about a business prodigy's comeback in my past life, but back then, I was far removed from high society and didn't pay much attention. How is Olivia so certain this person is Jax? Jax is waiting for Olivia at the main gate. The Fu family still won't let him inside. I only caught a distant glimpse of him, just an ordinary person. Really, slightly better looking than average, a bit taller, and with a darker complexion, and that's about it. He was still covered in dirt. While waiting, he kept wiping sweat from his forehead with his hand. What a sorry sight. The sun was blazing, and Jax kept urging Olivia to leave from the doorway. Olivia held on to Auntie Fu's hand, reluctant to let go, and only left with Jax after receiving a satisfactory answer. Jax didn't even have a car, in the nearly 40-degree heat. He led Olivia to ride shared bikes. It was Auntie Fu who ended up asking the butler to drive them for part of the way. After she left, Auntie Fu rubbed her temples and sighed. Children are nothing but debts. Silas pulled up in his Maybach to pick me up before I could even exchange a few words with her. Mrs. Fu's eyes lit up. See how considerate young Gu is. In this scorching heat, driving is absolutely necessary. No wonder they say marrying into this family means living a life of comfort. Silas is usually swamped with work, so I never expected him to have time to come get me. Mrs. Fu saw us out with starry-eyed affection. As we were leaving, she slipped a card into my hand. Eloan, I know you're not one to ask like Olivia does, but a woman should always have some money to fall back on. Thanks to Silas, my standing in the Fu family has improved, just like in the old days, before Olivia returned. When I was the only Fu family heiress, when Olivia first came to the Fu family. She even tried to kick me out of the house. Over 20 years of living as a wealthy heiress vanished into thin air. I felt like my whole world had collapsed, but in my previous life, I managed to fight my way back to the top. The Fu family taught me so much, including how to stand on my own 2 feet in this society. I don't hold any grudges against them. In fact, if the Fu family ever needs help, I'd still lend a hand. Silas has been quite busy today. He left first thing this morning. Though to be fair, he's usually out and about at this time anyway. This is definitely out of the ordinary for him. I asked in confusion, what's wrong? Didn't the Southern District project just launch? How do you have so much free time? Silas was silent for a moment. There's been an issue with the Southern District project. I'll have some downtime now. We just got married and haven't taken our honeymoon yet. Right, where would you like to go? I carefully recalled events from my previous life. It was supposed to be years before the Silas family would face any real danger. Without him noticing, I dug my nails deep into my own flesh. Were the signs already showing this early on? What's gone wrong with the South District project? Can you talk to me about it? The Maybach is supposed to be spacious, but the moment Silas sat next to me, it suddenly felt cramped. Silas was taken aback, even though ours is a marriage of convenience. We're still great partners. There's nothing we can't discuss openly, right? He paused, his voice low and raspy. For some reason, several of the Gu family's projects have run into issues recently. We've been investigating for ages but still can't figure out what's going on. Dad told me to take a break for now. It suddenly clicked why Silas had been constantly swamped ever since we got married, and now he's unexpectedly free. Silas gave me a reassuring look. Don't worry. Even if something really happens to the Gu family, I can guarantee you'll be financially secure for the rest of your life. When the time comes, I'll give you the divorce papers and won't involve you in any of it. Here, take this black card for now. Transfer tens of millions to your name first. I was so moved I nearly cried. What an absolutely incredible human being. I gave his hand a squeeze. Before we go completely broke, we can still give it our best shot. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Silas squeezed my hand back. Don't worry, it'll be fine. Let's take this opportunity to go on a trip together. Where would you like to go? The Maldives. So Silas chartered a private jet and even rented out an entire island in the Maldives. On the plane, his restless hand kept wandering around my waist. I've been swamped lately, but now we can really focus on deepening our connection. Yet I found myself resting my chin in my hands. Lost in thought as I watched Silas, he didn't seem nearly as cold as Olivia had described, and this sense of powerlessness in the face of such an unstoppable force. How could Silas, with all his wealth, end up bankrupt and meeting such a tragic fate just a few years later? Even a privileged scion of Beijing's elite circles like him couldn't withstand the protagonist's plot armor. Is Jax truly the chosen one, destined to have the whole world make way for him? In my past life, after being cast out by the Fu family, I lived entirely in the ordinary world. People like Jax and Silas were only names you'd see in the newspapers. It was only after years of relentless struggle that I managed to scrape my way into a corner of high society. At a charity gala, I saw Olivia, who had already divorced Silas, muttering incoherently before she rushed at me and stabbed me. Why does all the suffering have to fall on me? Looking back, there's still this stinging pain. I've racked my brain for so long, but I still can't figure out where I offended her. There was this man who started from the bottom and built a business empire. I remember him saying he was down and out, hauling bricks at a construction site in the south part of the city, until he caught a break and skyrocketed to success. But this person, why do I remember them looking nothing like Jax? Why is Olivia so convinced it's Jax? If it's not Jax, wouldn't that make her the fool in all this? Is this what they call the confidence of a female lead in a novel? What's on your mind? You're making such a face. Silas gently pinched my cheek. I was wondering if this world might actually be a novel. What do you mean? Well, like how people are influenced by fate, divided into heroes and villains, and things just seem to go more smoothly for the heroes. Silas froze for a moment. I still believe human will can conquer all. When things get tough, just take a break. There's always a way forward. Gazing at his sharp, handsome features, I quietly thought, if this were a novel, you'd definitely be the protagonist, wouldn't you? Well, with looks like that, of course. Jax has been acting really strange since taking over the Fu family business. With no resources or funding to speak of, Jax still managed to double the small company's performance. Olivia straightened her posture. See, I always knew Jax was a hidden gem. Just give him half a chance and he'll soar. Olivia insisted I attend the victory celebration. Let me show you what a true child of fortune looks like. Sweetheart, your days of bliss are numbered. Frankly, you're just a pretty ornament right now. Do you really think Silas lacks female company? Enjoy these lavish years while they last. She just wants to show off her current relationship with Jax. I was curious to see what kind of protagonist aura Jax really had, so I decided to go meet him. The venue was tiny, and Jax stumbled over his words, even saying some things incorrectly. I couldn't help but shake my head. Jax was nothing like the chosen one I had imagined in my past life. This was nothing like it at all. The lower-level employees were making a racket, with senior executives boasting about taking all the credit, while others were gossiping behind Jax's back with obvious disdain. This was supposed to be a listed company's victory celebration, but it felt more like a chaotic marketplace. After the celebration, Olivia asked the Fu family to stay behind again. She launched into an animated speech. If you ask me, all the Fu family businesses should be handed over to Jax. Look how capable he is. He doubled the performance in under 3 months. Everyone present was stunned. Mr. Fu cleared his throat. The company has truly performed exceptionally well. We're here today to celebrate our success. Let's discuss future matters another time. Olivia pinched Jax's arm, and he immediately caught on. That's right, Mom and Dad, don't worry, I'm capable now. His parents had no desire to continue the conversation with Jax, but Jax insisted. Olivia said I'm the chosen one in this world, destined to build a business empire. Trust me, Mom and Dad. Just hand the company over to me. Exactly, Mom and Dad, I'm your only daughter. If you're not giving it to Jax, are you planning to give it to Eloan instead? Dad was quicker to react than me. Eloan staying with the Fu family makes her a daughter of the Fu household. How dare you say such nonsense? The Fu family belongs to both of you sisters. I smiled sweetly at Eloan. Because I'm a daughter of the Fu family, I can bring the Silas family's resources to benefit our household. Unlike you, who's always talking about moving out, Olivia's eyes reddened with rage, probably thinking the Silas family was about to go bankrupt. Then she gave a sinister smirk. Of course we can't compare to the crown prince of Beijing's elite circles. So what has my dear brother-in-law been up to lately? Linking arms with Jax, she flaunted their connection like a social butterfly showing off. I recalled Silas's wild escapades in the Maldives. My cheeks flushed instantly. We were on our honeymoon. we just got back, and Silas went to handle some company matters. Olivia's expression finally shifted. Honeymoon? He actually went on a honeymoon with you? No way. Seriously, Eloan, you're making this up, aren't you? What's the point of lying? So it turns out in their previous life, they never even got to have a honeymoon. My smile grew even sweeter. The Gu family's business was declining day by day, while it appeared prosperous on the surface. Everything seemed to go wrong behind the scenes. Silas was run off his feet, and his family no longer cared whether he was the one bringing bad luck. The number of projects and contracts lost every day was staggering. Major newspapers and news outlets were also vying to report that the Gu family might face bankruptcy proceedings. The once mighty financial titan now found itself navigating treacherous shallows, teetering on the brink of collapse. I'm completely swamped myself. Silas has always treated me well, so I'm determined to use my past life knowledge and hard-won experience to help protect his assets. While most socialites facing bankruptcy might only have designer bags to sell, I'm different. Having already climbed back from ruin once before, I know exactly what can be liquidated or transferred. I was so exhausted that day, I dozed off on the couch in a daze. I was woken up by Olivia's bragging text message. Eloan, be smart and transfer the money to my account right now. Otherwise, you won't even get the chance to be a lapdog later. I've already had our parents pull their money out of Gu Corporation. It's going to be worthless soon anyway. Better to keep it with Jax. I suggest you transfer your funds over here sooner rather than later. Under Olivia's influence, the Fu family liquidated all their business interests tied to the Gu Corporation. They'd rather forfeit the profits than watch their money turn into worthless paper. Only Mrs. Fu hemmed and hawed before saying, maybe you should get a divorce. I'll give you some money to live on your own. Just don't tell people you're a Fu anymore. I'm your precious daughter when you need me. But now that the Silas family has fallen on hard times, you're trying to kick me out of the house all over again. They jumped ship just as the Gu Empire was sinking. I don't resent them. But I can't help feeling a little disappointed. I raised my hand and stared at Olivia's mocking words on the screen, slowly typing out a response. If your brain's broken, go see a doctor. A starved camel is still bigger than a horse. Even if Jax's company multiplied its performance tenfold or 100-fold, it still wouldn't measure up to the current Gu group. It can't even compare to the assets that have been transferred under my name. What are they thinking? Their judgment is so clouded. I rubbed my temples. How should I break this to Silas? How do you even broach this subject with someone so privileged? I've cut ties with the Fu family, but I still have some savings. Should I take care of you from now on, or should we just run away together? The more I think about it, the more wrong it feels. He probably thinks I've lost my mind. Olivia and Jax had already taken over the Fu family's business by then. They even came to flaunt their power. Meanwhile, the Gu family's fortunes kept declining, to the point where they had to sell their villa. They showed up at the villa we were preparing to move out of. For a moment, I couldn't tell if she hated me more or Silas. She burst out laughing at Silas's plain attire. So this is what the so-called Crown Prince of Beijing's elite circle has been reduced to, a drowned rat. I stepped in front of Silas. None of your business. You're just flaunting the Fu family's wealth. Anyone can throw their weight around like that. She narrowed her eyes, scanning the villa, nestled between the mountains and water. Quite a scenic spot. I suppose I could reluctantly buy this place to live in, but you'll have to clear out all your junk. It's an eyesore. No need to trouble yourself. Can't you see we're packing? Olivia sneered. Eloan, I swear I'll live a better life than you in this lifetime. What did I ever do to you? Why are you always against me? I'm genuinely puzzled, even if it's about our past lives. After she was recognized as the true heiress, I quickly left the Fu family because she was displeased. Becoming an ordinary person, she married the Crown Prince of Beijing's elite circle, only to despise Silas when he went bankrupt. This time around, it's another marriage she rejected, and I'm just picking up the scraps. I really can't figure out which lifetime I offended her in. I'm just trying to live my life. While she's always looking for a fight, she's got a screw loose. Olivia, I'm asking you to leave, until you've bought it. This is my home, not yours. Olivia was stunned. This was the first time I stood up to her. I twisted her arm and started roughly shoving her toward the door. You, Jax grabbed my hand with a strong grip. Show some respect to my wife. That hurt. Silas pried his hand away. Then show some respect to my wife. They parted on bad terms in the end. Before leaving, Olivia made a final threat. I was going to spare you, but when you're begging on the streets, don't come crawling back to me. I'm not going to indulge her either. I'd rather beg on the streets than leech off the Fu family. What else can you do besides sucking the Fu family dry? After they all left, Silas held me with a faint displeasure in his eyes. Next time they bully you, fight back. I'll have Uncle Wang accompany you. Yeah, I won't let her push me around anymore. I was just being tolerant before. How absurd. Silas began liquidating the Gu family assets, working late into the night every day. He came back under the moon and stars, his body still radiating a chill from the cold night air. I had dozed off on the couch waiting for him, but the sound of his careful, quiet footsteps woke me. What's wrong? Did I wake you? I shook my head. I was waiting for you anyway. There's something I need to talk to you about. His expression instantly fell, and he handed me some documents. If you want a divorce, I prepared these earlier. Most of the family assets will go to you. I swatted the documents away with my hand. Silas, what do you take me for? The Fu family's fake heiress. If you hadn't married me back then, I would have been kicked out. I'm not leaving unless you make me. Perhaps because my words were so earnest, Silas seemed genuinely moved. What if I go broke? You know the Gu Corporation has been going through some troubles lately. I held his hand calmly and said, then I'll take care of you. Silas was stunned. You want to face this hardship with me? I nodded earnestly. Then why were you secretly transferring assets? Quite sophisticated methods. I wouldn't have noticed if my lawyer hadn't pointed it out. How else would I support you? I said sheepishly. I want to make my own way too, but it's too slow. I'm afraid the Gu family business will collapse before I ever earn enough to take care of you properly, but when that time comes, I'll truly have no money left. You won't be able to maintain this wealthy lifestyle anymore, I replied with some irritation. If I hadn't married you, I would have had to return to an ordinary life 2 years ago. Consider this me paying back what I owe you. Anyway, I'm more than capable of supporting you. Don't look down on me, I've earned quite a bit myself. Silas wrapped his arms around me. You're amazing, honey. It's not that bad over there. It's just some sleight of hand. Sleight of hand. Now it was my turn to be stunned. The Gu family has been hitting roadblocks left and right lately. They're planning to, well, weed out the moles and then go public through a backdoor listing. With so many family members and entrenched old-timers with their complicated ties. My dad and I have been wanting to break away and start fresh for a while now. This is the perfect opportunity. He gave me a look that just screamed genius. There might be times when I'll have to put on a bit of a show. I was all set to go do some manual labor, even had the spot picked out, but my wife saw it coming, so I'm off the hook. I froze. Manual labor? What kind of manual labor? Silas coughed awkwardly, his cheeks flushing slightly. You know, at that construction site in the Southern District. Isn't that how it always goes in those novels? From construction worker to CEO of a business empire, ahem, you're always asking if the world is like a novel, right? So I went and read a few. He chuckled sheepishly. My mind was reeling with shock. Isn't that the construction site where Jax works as a laborer? Do you also use the name Silas when you're working on site? No, since I'm operating under a cover, I can't reveal my identity too soon. I use my mother's maiden name, Chen. I was completely stunned. Olivia. If she knew this construction worker was the husband she rejected in her past life, wouldn't she just lose it? After Silas and I got on the same page, I calmly faced the bankruptcy of the Gu family business. I held him and said, don't worry, things will get better. He hugged me back and said, you can count on it. It's just that we've sold the house, and there are still so many memories tied to this place. It's such a shame. Don't worry, as long as we can make a comeback, we'll always be able to buy it back. I still have some money set aside. We encouraged each other and moved into another villa I had purchased in advance. Silas flopped onto the couch. I thought we were in for some tough times, but I never knew my wife was this amazing. I chuckled. Well, it's the Gu family's money anyway. Might as well spend it. I even bought some stocks that have multiplied several times over. Silas squeezed my waist, his hand starting to wander again. It's a shame I can't tell anyone how incredible my wife is. He buried his face in the crook of my neck, his breathing growing ragged. Well, this massive sofa was definitely worth the investment, especially compared to how far we've fallen. Meanwhile, Olivia's been thriving. She seized the opportunity to take over many of the Gu family's businesses, assuring Jax and both sets of parents that she'd definitely succeed, for a time. Newspapers and news outlets were all reporting on this Fu family heiress, completely stealing the spotlight. She was branded with labels like shrewd investor and wealthy businesswoman, dressed in exquisite heiress attire. Olivia addressed the media with a charming demeanor. Although I wasn't raised in the Fu family, I believe the power of blood ties is profound. My parents' business acumen runs in my veins, and as for Jax, let's just say I have a good eye. As she spoke, she shyly lowered her head. The reporters immediately quipped, "Oh, this is just like a novel's plot. A wealthy heiress falls for a construction worker, who turns out to be a hidden gem with great potential." Olivia took the microphone and said, "He's more than just a hidden gem. He will build his own business empire one day. I've always believed in him." The scene was incredibly touching, and the audience below was completely swept up in the emotion. It would have been perfect if we could ignore Jax's tense, slightly pale face. I strongly suspect Olivia simply identified Jax because she knew this person's surname was Chen in her past life. He was at that construction site, and he happened to look presentable. But would a true chosen one really need a woman's help to soar to greatness? He's been hauling bricks all this time with nothing to show for it. Why would he need Olivia's redemption to build his business empire? Silas and I spent a whole year lying low with patience and discretion. We stayed completely out of the public eye. We ignored everything, from Olivia's sarcastic remarks to the inquiries from both the Fu and Silas families. Finally, Silas sorted everything out. "We'll be moving to a better place soon, and we can resume our old lifestyle." I couldn't help but laugh. I never felt like I was suffering through this past year. His workload lightened considerably, giving us more time together, and with the funds at my disposal, we were able to live quite comfortably, even if we had to keep a low profile. Rumors were already circulating about a conglomerate led by a certain Mr. Chen gaining formidable momentum, but the boss is incredibly low-key and has never made a public appearance. Many people speculated whether this was Jax's new venture. And even Olivia bought into the rumor. That day, Silas and I attended an auction because there was an emerald necklace I had loved in my previous life. At the auction, no matter how much I bid, Olivia would always outbid me, flashing me a provocative smile. "They should keep the riffraff out. This place is starting to look like a zoo." By the final bid I was furious. "Forget it, it's just an emerald necklace. There'll be better ones." She drove up the price of an emerald worth 1 million to a staggering 5 million, but Silas wrapped his arms around me and said, 50 million. The entire room fell silent in an instant. I patted his head and said, "Are you out of your mind? Why would you take such a bad deal?" Silas whispered in my ear, "If you like it, then she's worth every penny." Olivia's eyes reddened with anger. "Where would you get that kind of money? If you bid, you have to pay up." Silas simply smiled, pulled out a black gold card, and effortlessly swiped away the 50 million. All the media started taking photos, and everyone began whispering among themselves, "I thought the Beijing socialite heir went bankrupt. How is he still loaded? Oh please, he could waltz back into this scene anytime he wants." Everyone called him the prodigy back in the day. Olivia tried to keep chasing for more shots, but Jax held her down firmly. "Don't embarrass yourself in public." She was absolutely furious. "You wouldn't be where you are today without me. All I want is an emerald necklace." Jax's face flushed red with anger. "You've always walked all over me. This isn't the time for your tantrums. You blew 50 million. What about our company's cash flow? When are you going to get your head out of the clouds?" He then forcefully pinned Olivia's hand down. Olivia's eyes welled up with tears, her face a picture of hurt and injustice. During the subsequent auction items, Olivia had been staring at me with red-rimmed eyes the entire time. As the event concluded, she aggressively positioned herself between Silas and me. "Eloan, we need to talk." I nodded and followed her. Silas seemed about to say something, but I gave him a reassuring look. As it happened, I had some questions for Olivia too. We reached a corner where the crowd thinned. Her eyes were still slightly red. "How do you deserve such good fortune? You've lived the luxurious life that should have been mine all these years, and now Silas buys you this expensive necklace even after going bankrupt. This was all your choice. This marriage arrangement was originally yours to begin with. You were the one who looked down on Silas and claimed he'd go bankrupt someday." Olivia studied me curiously. "Don't tell me you've been reborn too." I stayed silent, tacitly confirming it. "Then why did you marry Silas? Why?" "I've been wondering too. What grudge did you hold against me in our past life that made you want to kill me? Silas keeps singing your praises in front of me, saying I'm not a true lady of noble birth. I hate you both. You're the one who stole my life." My mind was flooded with questions. I was certain I'd never even met Silas in my previous life. "But you never even tried to live up to being Mrs. Gu. Why should I even try? I married him, so why doesn't he love me? Why does he still make demands of me? Then why doesn't he demand anything from you?" "I hate you." I hate you, how dare you, how dare you. I backed away and made a run for it before Olivia completely lost it, clutching the pepper spray in my bag. It took me a long time to catch my breath after I got outside. That lunatic. I don't want to get stabbed by her again in this lifetime. On the day Silas reclaimed his status as the crown prince of Beijing's elite circle, Olivia came to see me again with a knife hidden in her bag, but this time, security stopped me way earlier than expected. That wasn't even the part that got to her the most. What really got under her skin was finding out Jax wasn't some golden boy. The company's so-called doubling was just cooked books, thanks to his family connections. Now he's tangled up in lawsuits, and the Fu family business is teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. Mrs. Fu came to see me several times. Eloan, I know you're a good daughter. Please help the Fu family this once. Didn't we play a crucial role in arranging your marriage? I pulled out a bank card. This should cover your basic needs, but don't expect anything beyond that. You've already cast me out of the Fu family twice. Both Mr. and Mrs. Fu were utterly confused. As far as they were concerned, they'd only cut ties with me when Silas fell from grace. But I carried memories from 2 lifetimes. All the gratitude for raising me is in this bank card. I was never truly a part of the Fu family. Olivia has completely lost it, wandering the streets every day and spouting nonsense. When Jax realized she couldn't come up with more money, his true colors started to show. He began beating Olivia, yelling, "I was perfectly fine working construction. You're the one who pushed me into being some company legal representative. Now look where we are. I might even end up in jail." Olivia had never been treated so unfairly before, and she immediately wanted to get into a physical fight with him. I really don't understand her. Does she really think everything I have is because I once took over her luxurious life? But she forgets that even when I was the real heiress, I never slacked off for a single day. I studied hard, which is what later enabled me to strive and achieve on my own. When I remarried Silas, I gave my whole heart to the relationship, because genuine connection can only be built on mutual sincerity. During that year when Silas retreated from public life, I revived my previous career in arts education, making high-quality instruction accessible to everyone by offering affordable piano lessons and other courses. This was my own path to walk, with or without Silas by my side, no matter the circumstances. Whether I'm the true heiress or not, I'll carve my own path right where I stand. Even without Olivia in my past life, I ended up just fine, though I did miss having Silas by my side. Maybe this second chance at life is our destiny rekindled. Silas wrapped his arms around my waist and whispered, "When are we having a baby?" I'll tell them the story of a business prodigy's remarkable comeback. Story 2, my father has been a kind person all his life, until the Ice Age apocalypse arrived. The supplies I had painstakingly stockpiled were given away by him to our relatives and neighbors without hesitation. He said brazenly, "The more difficult the situation is, the more we should step forward and make contributions. If you want to be a good person, you should go all the way. If you give up halfway, do you want others to break my backbone?" Soon, our family ran out of food and supplies. Finally, after being hungry for 3 days, my father threatened to commit suicide to force me to go out and snap up relief supplies. In less than 5 minutes, I was frozen to death on the way. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to a month before the Ice Age apocalypse. In this life, I want to see how my living father can save the world without me. 1. Can you lose a piece of meat by helping your aunt's son? Anyway, you have the title of a law firm partner. I don't believe you can't even get someone out. Don't forget that your aunt held you when you were a child. One should not forget one's roots. Even if you become very successful, you still have to take care of family matters. I really don't know how you became a partner. You're already so old but still don't understand the ways of the world at all. Fragmented memories flooded into my mind like a tide. In my previous life, my mother passed away early. After my grandparents died, my father became the only relative I had in the world. In order to hold on to this last bit of family affection, even though his saintly father complex was already incurable, I never said no to him until half a month before the Ice Age apocalypse. A friend who worked at the Meteorological Bureau informed me in advance of the impending human crisis. In order to survive, I purchased a large amount of supplies in advance and stored them at home. However, my father, with the saintly father complex, without hesitation, distributed all the things to our relatives and friends. When the apocalypse came, under the threat of death, he put a knife to his own neck and forced me to go out and compete with dozens of burly men for airdropped supplies. I who had been in a weak state for a long time, was frozen to death in the severe cold of -100 degrees Celsius less than 5 minutes after going out. After my death, I found out that my mother's death was actually caused by him, shortly after my mother gave birth to me. He secretly lent all the family's savings of tens of thousands of yuan to relatives without her knowledge. When my mother discovered it, there was less than 50 yuan left in the passbook. In extreme collapse, my mother was forced by him to suffer from postpartum depression and finally chose to jump off the building and commit suicide, and his attitude towards me was like a fierce ghost lying on me, piercing my skin with its teeth and sucking every drop of my blood. Remembering all these past events, hatred welled up in my heart like an uncontrollable tide. I suddenly stood up, stared at him intently, and said, "Do you know what crime her son committed? Just keep saying help, help. He raped a 13-year-old girl. Even a beast wouldn't do such a thing. The evidence chain is complete. It's already lenient to sentence him to less than 10 years in prison. You wake up every day with nothing to do and just keep thinking about saving the world, right? You're so eager to help them, then why don't you go to prison for him?" As soon as I finished speaking, I picked up my bag and walked straight to the door. My father followed closely behind, cursing angrily. "Damn it, how could I have given birth to such an evil obstacle with my excellent genes? I don't care what method you use, anyway, I will never take back what I said." Seeing me step over the threshold, he picked up a broom and threw it at me. A sharp pain came from my shoulder, and I saw my father's face turn. "I'm telling you, you have to help with this matter whether you want to or not." He pretended to hold his heart and threatened, "Otherwise, just wait and watch me die in front of you." If it were in my previous life, I would have already cried and begged for his forgiveness at this moment. However, now, his performance is just a joke in my eyes. I stood still and slowly said, "Fine, do whatever you want. I won't interfere in this matter. And I won't ask about all future matters either. Having been reborn, I want to see if his good persona can still hold up without my support, too." On the way home, I carefully counted my property. After working day and night for several years, my savings were enough to buy a small house in the urban area. In addition, considering the principal and profits of various futures and investments, all in all, these assets should be able to ensure my survival when the Ice Age apocalypse arrives. After the funds were ready, I quickly contacted a reliable intermediary company and bought a house that I had taken a fancy to in my previous life with a full payment. This house is located in the central urban area, with a superior geographical location, and there is a small courtyard on the first floor. Although the area is only over 90 square meters, it is more than enough for me to live alone. In my previous life, I had already decided to sign the contract and pay for this house. However, my father's saintly father complex flared up again. He resorted to all means to force me to take out more than 500,000 yuan and lend it to his junior high school classmate to open a store. In this life, not only did I buy this house with a full payment, but I also spent an additional 100,000 yuan to buy the supporting garage and basement. Based on my experience in my previous life, I know very well that when the Ice Age apocalypse arrives, water, food, and heating are the three indispensable elements for survival. So, I drove back and forth to the supermarket several times, purchased 200 boxes of mineral water, and emptied the shelves of more than 20 freezers of instant food and frozen products. In addition, dozens of boxes of daily necessities such as tissues and sanitary napkins, as well as medicines, were also stockpiled, which was enough for me to use for half a year. A few days later, after getting the key to the house, I immediately contacted a friend who dealt with materials and spent 200,000 yuan to buy the highest strength bulletproof glass, security doors, and a generator that can withstand extremely low temperatures. As the saying goes, one should not have the intention to harm others, but should always be on guard against others, in an extreme environment like the apocalypse. In order to strive for the opportunity to survive, the evil in human nature will be maximally stimulated. Although stockpiling supplies is important, it is even more crucial to protect the supplies and ensure one's own safety. In this way, my survival when the apocalypse strikes is guaranteed. After everything was ready, I decided to go home for the last time. After all my thick clothes were still in the closet. Even if I didn't need them, I couldn't let others take advantage of them. Unfortunately, I happened to catch my father entertaining guests at home. Seeing me, my father slapped his chopsticks on the table and pointed at my nose and scolded, "You still have the nerve to come back, you beast, don't let me see you again." Sitting with him were also my so-called uncles and aunts. Before they even swallowed the meat in their mouths, they couldn't wait to give me a moral education. Sienna is back. Since your father has cooked a meal, sit down and have some. You're already so old and should be sensible. Your father is old and not in good health. For those small quarrels usually, what's the harm in giving in to your father? One should have a conscience and think more about others. Your father has been a good person all his life. You should at least learn from him. It won't cost you anything. You don't know how angry you made your father that day. You're capable now. But you still have to listen to what you should listen to. Being so heartless at such a young age will bring retribution. Their preaching didn't stop until I finished packing my luggage, and there was undisguised pride on my father's face. I didn't even need to think to know that he was using his old tricks again, pretending to be pitiful and playing the victim. Those who had received favors from them would come forward to speak for him. After all, they only need to move their lips, and they can unconditionally order around a sucker someday in the future. They naturally enjoy this kind of thing. My father was so flattered by being called a good person, one after another, that the corners of his mouth almost reached his ears. However, they seemed to have forgotten that all the things my father promised were actually accomplished by me bit by bit. Since things have come to this point, I might as well make myself even more hated. Uncle, I forced a smile and said, I remember that last year you wanted to open a car repair shop but didn't have enough money, so you borrowed more than 300,000 yuan from my father. In the end, it was me who paid the money. You even wrote an IOU, promising to pay it back in June this year. Now it's already September. You should pay the money back to me, right? And Aunt Third, 2 years ago, your grandson wanted to go to a key primary school. You came to my father in the middle of the night to talk about this. In the end, I carried a lot of gifts to flatter the school leader and bowed and scraped for a week before getting a borrowing quota. You know about this. Oh, right. And Aunt, your daughter-in-law insisted on staying in a single room when she gave birth in the first half of the year. The beds in the municipal hospital were so tight that I actually gave the director a gift of 20,000 yuan to get a room. I'm not saying you have to thank me. But now, your son has done such a beastly thing and got into trouble. And you want me to clean up his mess. Just now it was noisy and lively, but now they were all as mute as a fish, not even daring to make a sound. Seeing my father's nostrils flaring with anger, I sneered and continued to add fuel to the fire. I'm not trying to make things difficult for you elders by saying these things. Although all my money is invested in the law firm, my father is kind-hearted. A few days ago, he also told me that my aunt's son is like his own son. Even if we can't get him out this time, my father will take care of him when he gets out in the future. My father doesn't have much money, but he is still willing to take out half of his pension to help my aunt's 2 families get through the difficulties, and he used to be a chef. My father said he would take care of all 3 meals for my aunt's daughter-in-law during her breastfeeding period. As soon as I finished speaking, my father's face instantly turned as black as the bottom of a pot. Aunt held his hand with snot and tears, and said excitedly, Xander, you are really like a living bodhisattva descending to the world. We have all seen and remembered your kindness to us. I will be grateful to you for the rest of my life. In an instant, my father was labeled as a living bodhisattva and a savior, but I knew very well that although he was saying it should be done now, there must be countless no's written in his heart out of reluctance. After all, the premise of the good deeds he did has always been that his own interests are not damaged. However, no one else is to blame for this. Be a good person all the way through. He himself said these words. More than half a month passed peacefully. One day, when I was curled up at home watching a drama, I suddenly heard the wind and rain raging outside the window. I knew that this was a major omen before the arrival of the Ice Age apocalypse. Soon, the world outside my home would turn into a living hell, water would freeze into ice, and plants would wither. As expected, the day after the rain, the outside temperature dropped sharply from over 30 degrees to more than 20 degrees below zero. The undried rainwater on the ground quickly froze at a visible speed. People who were still wearing short sleeves yesterday were now wrapped in thick cotton clothes. All the TV stations reported the news of this sharp temperature drop without exception. My WeChat moments also exploded, full of fear and complaints. Until the afternoon, more and more people woke up to the seriousness of the situation. Various small convenience stores closed one after another, and the big supermarkets were crowded with people. People frantically snapped up all kinds of food supplies. Even the vegetable leaves that fell on the ground could trigger fierce disputes. The supermarket downstairs in my house dealt with 2 bodies of people who died in a stampede accident within 1 day. In the face of unknown changes, human fear will be infinitely magnified. Only I knew that this unprecedented disaster had just begun at this moment, for, in less than a week, the outdoor temperature had dropped sharply to more than 60 degrees below zero, except for medical staff and the police. Other units were forced to shut down completely under the condition of grassroots construction. The power pipelines in those old residential areas had long been completely paralyzed by the cold, and my father also began to lose his composure. Just when I was curled up at home eating hot pot and watching a drama, his call came. I could hear him shivering with cold even through the phone, even in the face of great disaster. He still didn't forget to carefully maintain his persona. Sienna. Are you at home now? Do you have enough food and clothes? I calmly turned on the speakerphone of my phone and continued to pick at the meat in my bowl. The experience of my previous life and this life has made me familiar with his tricks. Giving some words of concern before making a request is his usual trick. After all, I fell for this in my previous life. As expected, his true purpose was revealed in the next sentence. If you have enough food and drinks now, then hurry up and send some to your uncles and aunts for me. Tell them it's from me when you get there. The more critical the situation is, the more we should show this spiritual outlook. We must be selfless and dedicated, especially now that you have money and ability. It is your bounden duty and obligation to help your relatives and friends in the family. I have already told them in the family group, and they are all very grateful to me. If it really doesn't work, you can send all the supplies to me, and I can let them come and pick them up. After listening to his words, I just wanted to sigh how the brilliance of human nature could be great to such an extent. At this moment of human survival and death, he was willing to sacrifice his own daughter to fulfill his reputation and help his relatives. People who know him may say he is a saintly father, while those who don't may think he is a patient who escaped from a mental hospital. I was so angry that I couldn't help laughing. Dad, don't you feel ashamed saying these words, leaving aside whether it's right or wrong for you to let me send supplies to outsiders without considering my safety at this time? Even if I agree, I run around at the risk of being frozen to death, and in the end, I still have to do it in your name. What's the matter? Do you think my life is too long, or do I deserve to owe you? After I finished speaking, my father was stunned for several seconds before he reacted. Listen to what nonsense you're talking. I'm old, and I can't even ask you to do something, right? You're so reluctant to send some things. How could I have such a selfish daughter? I've been a good person all my life. Do you want me to be a coward now, waiting for others to break my backbone? I calmly held the phone away and said word by word, you know very well in your heart whether you have really been a good person in your life. No matter how much a wolf pretends, it will never become a human. You'd better think twice about what you do. 5. If my father hadn't reminded me, I would have forgotten that there was a long, dormant family group in WeChat. When I scrolled through the chat records, the more I looked up, the more ridiculous I felt. 2 hours ago, my father assured everyone with great confidence that he would solve all the problems regarding supplies. Once these words were spoken, it was like pouring a bucket of boiling water into hot oil. Even my great-grandfather and great-grandmother, who couldn't type, got excited. I have to say that in this life, people are nothing but pursuing emotional value. Countless words of praise poured towards my father, and some even proposed rewriting the family genealogy and creating a separate page for him. With just a few words, my father was completely lost. However, all of this was based on my nod of approval. Now, the messages in the group are still being updated continuously. They have even arranged the order of going to my father's house to receive supplies. However, my father, who was so active just now, suddenly fell silent. Naturally, the people in the group noticed something was wrong. After bombarding my father for half an hour, he finally showed up and said, everyone, please be patient. There is a problem with my plan. I will notify you immediately as soon as I figure out a solution. Now, the group became even more lively than before. I quickly rummaged through the snack cart and found a bag of melon seeds. I started cracking them while watching the show. Xander, everyone is waiting for you to save their lives, but you, before getting things done, you're already backing out. Isn't this just teasing people? That's right, you usually seem like a very reliable person. Why are you messing things up at this time? You really let us down. Xander, what you did isn't right. Everyone is extremely anxious, and you're just adding to our distress. Isn't this just pouring oil on the fire? You know, the sense of disappointment after excessive anticipation is the most unbearable for people. What's more, at this life and death moment for everyone, such a huge psychological up and down is enough to make people feel desperate. With this move, my father successfully pulled himself down from the position of savior and fell, with a thud, into a rats crossing the street that everyone shouts at. Since then, my father didn't make any big moves for several days in a row. I continued to live a leisurely and carefree life at home, but the world outside became more and more tragic. More than a month passed, and the outdoor temperature had dropped to minus 150 degrees Celsius. Crops were all frozen to death in the fields. The streets were deserted. Occasionally, something would suddenly fall from the sky. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be the frozen corpses of birds. Not only birds, but also more and more people were frozen to death or starved to death in the extremely cold environment. The death toll was being updated every day in the news and on moments. People who were still complaining of hunger yesterday had stopped breathing today. No one could predict when the apocalypse would end, and people's patience and most of the supplies they had snapped up before had been exhausted. This had definitely exceeded the maximum limit that human physiology and psychology could bear. During this period, my father's calls and messages never stopped. From the beginning until now, all the energy he used to be selfless and dedicated has been used to complain about the cold and hunger. But so what? I couldn't be soft-hearted. Once I let the slightest bit of slack show, he would immediately pounce and use all his wits until he squeezed out the last drop of blood from me. Compared to my previous life when I died with resentment in the extreme cold, the pain and suffering he endured were nothing. Just when I thought I could safely get through this Ice Age apocalypse, something unexpected happened. 6. My house is located in the city center, and most of the relief supplies regularly distributed by the government are concentrated in this area. One day, not long after the relief supplies were looted, my father sent me a photo. In the photo was my back as I was practicing yoga in the living room. The shooting time should be this morning. Not only that, but the photographer also captured all the supplies on the entire wall behind me in the shot. Subsequently, my father made a voice call. Sienna, the person in the photo is you, right? You heartless beast. Your father is almost starving to death at home, and you, on the other hand, have hidden so many things at home and are enjoying good food every day. Now, immediately bring these things to me, or I will never let you go. I was sipping hot tea, leisurely lying back on the sofa, and slowly said, "Don't worry, Dad, even if these things I stockpiled get moldy and hairy, I won't give you a single bit." I could even imagine my father's half-dead look from anger at this moment, but it didn't matter. I didn't care about that. Everyone has a heart. You can take these 2 days to think carefully about what you've done. Shortly after I was born, you drove my mother into postpartum depression and caused her to commit suicide by jumping off a building, making me lose my mother since I was a child, until I went to college. Did you ever take care of me or even look at me once? The memories of my previous life reappeared in my mind. I squinted my eyes in pain and continued hoarsely. When I was bullied at school and was cornered by my classmates and called a wild child, where were you? When I was working odd jobs in the freezing winter to earn tuition and living expenses and my hands cracked and bled from washing dishes in high school and college, where were you? Until I graduated from college, and my grandparents passed away, I found out that I actually had a good father like you. Yes, you have been a good person all your life, but you became a good person by stepping on my mother's body and sucking my blood. You know a pair of shoes doesn't fit when you buy it. Now that disaster has struck, you remember you have a daughter like me. What were you doing earlier? After saying that, I directly hung up the phone. After 2 lifetimes of reincarnation, I have already seen through his true nature. I don't have any illusions that he will reflect or hope that he will change. He will never think he is wrong. Sure enough, a few seconds after hanging up the phone, another message came. Beast, just wait. Your retribution is coming soon. 7, at noon the next day. I was immersed in a nap when I was suddenly awakened by a noisy pounding sound outside the garage. Through the surveillance, I clearly saw a specially made heating and insulation vehicle parked in front of the garage, with at least a dozen people sitting inside. Several men near the window were constantly throwing wooden sticks and stones out of the window, hitting my garage door one after another, and the person sitting in the passenger seat, directing them, was none other than my dear father, who claimed he would bring retribution to me. After not seeing him for 2 months, he had completely turned into a different person. His face was sallow, his body was extremely emaciated, and his eyes were deeply sunken into his eye sockets due to lack of water and hunger, like a fierce ghost crawling out of the 18th level of hell, gaunt and ferocious. While directing the men, he dialed my phone. "Sienna, you open the door for me right now. Don't force us to break in. If you open the door now, we can still discuss dividing the supplies. Otherwise, even if you starve to death, I won't leave you a single grain of food." I calmly watched the scene on the surveillance, and a smile suddenly appeared on the corner of my mouth. When I renovated this place, I had always been on guard against those people who would stop at nothing to survive. But I deliberately forgot that my father was also one of those people. Now that this scene came into view, the big stone in my heart finally fell. I took my time to put on a light makeup, took the elevator directly to my garage, and stood in front of the bullet-proof glass, quietly watching them do useless work. Although this garage door looked no different from an ordinary rolling shutter door, it was purchased at a cost of tens of thousands of yuan per square meter. It was made of the highest strength aerospace grade materials, in terms of toughness, hardness, and resistance to external forces. It was among the best in the world. I had specifically tested it, not to mention this kind of knocking with stones and wooden sticks. Even if they came crashing with an armored vehicle for a day and a night, it would be no problem. Seeing my indifferent attitude, my father was completely enraged. He picked up a loudspeaker and almost roared, pouring all the unseemly words at me. Even vicious words like slut, whore, and public bus were thrown at me. After listening, I felt nothing in my heart. I had already accepted the reality of not having fatherly love, and now I no longer needed this fatherly love. This was his true nature. Now he just no longer bothered to pretend. The next second, two burly men dressed in thick clothes like Michelin tires jumped out of the car. They were my father's close uncles. They took out two large-sized chainsaws from the trunk and walked straight towards the garage door. Judging by the situation, they were obviously going to stage a scene of forced demolition for me. Well, then, I was just worried that there was no TV drama to watch. Occasionally, it's quite interesting to watch this kind of thankless farce. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes later, the two men took off their coats. 6 minutes later, they took off their upper body underclothes. 8 minutes later, the two men who were still menacing just now had fallen stiffly to the ground, with satisfied smiles on their faces. This was a typical feature of people who were frozen to death. The impact of seeing death with one's own eyes was far greater than any words. Seeing this scene, the people who were still shouting and making a ruckus just now immediately fell silent. Taking this opportunity, I said through the surveillance microphone, "I know you were all instigated by my father. First of all, the supplies he promised you are not with me. Everything I did was just to keep myself alive. Go and seek compensation from the person who owes you. I don't owe any of you anything, nor have I ever promised to give you anything. Let me tell you the truth, the anti-theft doors and windows you see now are all custom, made with special materials. It's impossible for you to break them with your strength." I glanced at the bodies of the two uncles at the door and continued in a calm tone, "You have also seen the consequences of acting rashly. In another hour, the outdoor temperature will drop by another 25 degrees. By then, your vehicle won't be able to hold out for long either. Use your brains and think carefully. If my father really had your best interests at heart, how could he instigate you to do this useless work when it's so cold that people can freeze to death?" The wives of the two uncles watched their husbands die right in front of them. Their already fragile mental states completely collapsed at this moment. Aunt Adeline covered her face and let out a scream, then suddenly turned around and pounced on my father. Beast, I said why you didn't do this job yourself and insisted on making my Xander do it, so you already knew, right? What kind of fake good person are you pretending to be every day? You got to be the hero with a smug look on your face. But what about my Xander? He was killed by you. My Xander is dead. What about the half of the supplies you promised me? Now there are no supplies in sight, and you've killed someone. I think you can't survive anymore and want to drag us all to our deaths with you. Aunt Adeline's words reached everyone's ears clearly, word by word. Everyone's faces changed suddenly, at this moment. Without further words, everyone knew it well. At this critical moment, how could there be any truly good people in the world? Judging by my father's appearance, he probably hadn't had a full meal for at least a month. These relatives and friends had taken full advantage of him, and naturally, they subconsciously regarded him as a sucker. But if you think about it carefully, a person like my father, who abandons his family and puts on an act in front of outsiders. How could he be a good person? He was inherently selfish. He had achieved nothing in most of his life, after accidentally discovering that being a good person could get him unconditional adulation. He began to safeguard his own interests and squeeze his family without do so, called good deeds. The people in the vehicle woke up as if from a dream and looked at my father in unison. Even several hot-tempered relatives felt that just talking wasn't enough to vent their anger. So they simply punched my father hard on his chest and back a few times before stopping. Under the siege of the people in the vehicle, my father was completely powerless to resist and could only curl up in the chair, covering his head and constantly begging for mercy. It was not until everyone had vented their anger that he dared to raise his head, while greedily staring at the bodies of the two uncles in front of the garage door. He kept swallowing his saliva. 9. The extremely cold weather was still continuing, for 3 consecutive months. At first people thought this was just a sudden meteorological change. However, to this day, the official authorities are unable to count the exact number of deaths. In this extreme environment, various viruses, big and small, also multiplied unusually. My father finally couldn't hold on anymore. He almost crazily asked for help in the family group, begging for water, medicine, and food. After the message was sent, 1 day, 2 days, there was still no response. Everyone tacitly ignored him, and no one cared about his past good deeds. He pinned his last hope on me, as if in this life and the previous one, this was the first time he really regarded me as a person. After not seeing him for a while, he had become so emaciated that he was just skin and bones, and almost all of his hair and teeth had fallen out. The moment I answered the video call, 2 lines of clear tears immediately flowed from his eyes. Daughter. In this world, only the 2 of us are blood-related. Dad has been reflecting. Now I really know I was wrong. When I think about those things in the past, I feel extremely distressed. Look, how about this? You think of a way to bring Dad over to live with you. I promise I will definitely make up for all the fatherly love I owed you before. I closed my eyes and tried my best to suppress the churning in my stomach. He thought his confession was earth-shattering, but in my eyes, it was just crocodile tears. Human nature is difficult to shake easily. He was temporarily lowering his head and apologizing because he was afraid of death. Once the crisis was over, he would still return to his old self. I said indifferently, your so-called confession is just a struggle in the face of death. From the moment you decided to bring a carload of people to my house to rob supplies, you should have understood that the father-daughter bond between us has been broken. After saying that, I hung up the phone and completely deleted and blocked all contact information. From then on, my father had no way to contact me anymore. The last time I heard news about him was in the property owners group of the community. 10 at noon that day, the neighbor living across from my father posted a video in the property owners group. In the video, a middle-aged woman with a hatchet in her hand, messy hair, and walking like a zombie stood in front of my father's door. In order to survive, I purchased a large amount of supplies in advance and stored them at home. Shortly after Uncle Bo passed away, I heard about Aunt Adeline's experience. The long-term plight of hunger and cold had approached the limit of her endurance, coupled with the scene of seeing Uncle Bo being brutally killed and then cannibalized that day. Her spirit completely collapsed. In the video, she said nothing and suddenly swung the hatchet, hacking at the door lock again and again. Soon, with a clang, the door lock fell to the ground. Immediately after, my father's shrill screams and pleas for mercy echoed throughout the floor. After dozens of seconds, everything returned to calm again. 11. The Ice Age apocalypse lasted for a full 4 months before finally coming to an end. During this extremely cold ordeal, many elderly people and children passed away painfully. There were also countless people whose lives were hanging by a thread due to being infected with prion disease from cannibalism. As for my father, I didn't even see his remains. Perhaps they had been discarded, or perhaps they had been cannibalized. I didn't know all this and didn't plan to pursue it further. Subsequently, the government purchased the house where I was living at that time and renovated it into a small memorial hall, and I took the money, settled in Hainan, and founded my own law firm. From then on, there was only myself left in my world. I love myself unconditionally and passionately. Story 2. Even if there were zombies that seemed off, Emerson strolled by nonchalantly, until we turned onto our West Road. Our West Road is a main thoroughfare, built in earlier years, with only 2 lanes each way and usually congested. Now, Only the 6-story residential buildings on both sides stood darkly in the night. Before the first gunshot, I had no idea what was happening. The second shot exploded just 2 meters from me, kicking up a cloud of dirt. My head nearly exploded. Previously hiding upstairs, I had heard gunshots and assumed it was the police maintaining order. But now, why were the shots aimed at us? Surely they didn't mistake us for zombies. Instinctively, I looked across at the row of dark residential buildings, trying to discern from which window the sniper was firing. But I quickly realized a more terrifying problem than the sniper. The zombies heard it. The continuous gunfire, while never hitting us, had caught the zombies' attention. The loud noises made the zombies raise their arms and charge towards us. Tense breaths filled the air. The scent of humans undoubtedly drove the zombies even crazier, hastening their stumbling steps. Amid the loud gunfire, all the zombies ahead began to encircle us. The massive building of the People's Hospital was right before our eyes, yet we encountered a horde of zombies. Just then, I heard Emerson's calm voice, "Slingshot, huh?" I suddenly remembered what Emerson had put in my pocket before we left, and I pulled it out. "Shoot," he commanded me. "What does that mean? Can I, Giselle, take down 100, especially from a moving bicycle?" Now there's a Mongolian cavalryman sitting on the back of the bike, and even he couldn't manage it, despite saying this. Seeing the zombies less than 100 meters away, I nervously raised the slingshot and aimed at the foremost one. Emerson's slingshot was practical, with a leather steel ball and stainless steel frame. I gave it my all and fired. The leading zombie shuddered but quickly straightened up and limped on. Emerson's bicycle continued to pedal forward unhurriedly. Seeing a collision imminent, I panicked. "It's useless. I can't do this." Emerson chuckled. "Who told you to shoot at zombies?" "Hit the windows." Me, damn, he hadn't mentioned that before. I grabbed a few more steel balls and aimed at 2 o'clock, where the sniper fire had faintly come from. I heard a loud crash. In the darkness, windows shattered en masse and clattered onto the roadway. The deafening noise brought the zombies to a halt. Seeing an opportunity, I continued to fire. The relentless noise from the old neighborhood's windows altered the direction of the zombie horde, like donkeys chasing a dangling carrot. Majestically moving towards the deserted roadway, behind the horde, Emerson pedaled the bicycle, leisurely carrying me into the People's Hospital. The dilapidated, blood-splattered People's Hospital stood quietly under the massive, hairy moon, resembling a backdrop in a horror story. Almost as soon as we entered, Emerson pushed the bicycle against a wall and pulled me into a side building. From the corner of my eye, I saw wandering zombies at the main entrance, silent as tombstones. The hallway was no better, pitch black with a strong smell of blood. Using the moonlight filtering through the glass, I saw countless bloody handprints on the walls. When the zombie outbreak began, no one knew what they were facing. People bitten were brought to the hospital, treated as if they had rabies. Then, the hospital was overrun. The hand holding mine felt loose. I gripped it tightly, the only warm, soft thing in this darkness. I couldn't let him go. Emerson stopped, turned his head to look at me, and softly hummed an "mm" with a rising tone. This method seemed more elegant yet equally brutal. Then, I felt a large hand rest gently on my head and give it a little rub. "Good job just now." The teasing laughter in his words made me feel like I was being treated like a child, which was annoying, but I couldn't voice it. I had to seriously change the topic. "Why would someone shoot?" "They are survivors from nearby. There are medicines in the hospital," Emerson explained succinctly. I was greatly shocked. Had it come to this over just a few supplies? Was stepping into their territory a reason enough to kill? That's too much. Thinking back, shooting at people and attracting a horde of zombies seemed to be something they were quite adept at. After the zombies started closing in, they stopped shooting, obviously to save ammunition, convinced that we would die. Who knows how many lives they had on their conscience? Don't let me find out who it is. I clenched my fists. "Oh, do you want to kill them?" Emerson turned around, pinching his glasses with interest. His tone was as casual as if discussing the weather. I felt goosebumps inexplicably forming on my arms, and his next words blew me away. "That's not impossible." Emerson's lips slightly curled up, and behind his glasses, there was a hint of indulgence. I swallowed hard. "Have you ever killed anyone?" Emerson, leading me by one hand and pulling out a triangular military dagger from his backpack with the other, replied, "Not yet." "What do you mean by not yet?" I was more panicked than if I had heard an actual number. "Not yet means not yet." Emerson's voice was elongated, light and lazy, indescribably ambiguous. "I have had my eye on a target for 3 years, but haven't gotten her yet." thump, in the dark corridor. I stopped in my tracks, hearing my own exaggerated heartbeat. Emerson stopped as well. In his white shirt and suit pants, holding the cold steel of the triangular dagger, he looked at me with a smile. "What is it?" he asked gently. I shivered, suddenly feeling very cold behind me. The moment our eyes met felt as long as a lifetime. Then, in an unexpected moment, he suddenly swung his right arm, the dagger whistling through the air towards me. I instinctively ducked and covered my head. Drip, drip. Black blood fell on my shoulder, and everything seemed to freeze. I looked up, and Emerson, holding the dagger, had accurately and fiercely stabbed it into the brow of a zombie that had been standing right behind me. The zombie hadn't even started to claw or snarl. It dropped its arms like a puppet with its strings cut. Emerson efficiently pulled out the dagger. The blood groove on the dagger prevented any obstruction of flesh and blood. The black blood spread, and the zombie thudded to the ground, life extinguished. I had never seen anyone kill a zombie like that. Lobotomies in the last century involved using a long spike to destroy the frontal lobes to treat mental illnesses. Though it was of no use, Emerson gracefully helped me up from the ground. But it works well against zombies. Zombies lack intelligence but need their motor modules to coordinate their body movements. He explained his technique in a breezy manner. I glanced at the blood-stained dagger. Compared to others blowing their heads off, this method seemed more elegant yet equally brutal. Decapitation, smashing, Emerson's methods were bloody yet precise, elegant, and swift, lethal in a single strike. He was a professional, like an assassin. Indeed, his skill in killing zombies was so professional. But what about killing people, who was originally meant to be at the receiving end of his military dagger? As I plunged into immense fear, Emerson frowned and looked ahead, following his gaze into the darkness. Pale white eyeballs began to emerge. Low moans echoed intermittently through the hallway. Zombies. Instinctively, I wanted to run outside, but a zombie suddenly slammed against the door at the end of the hallway. Then a second one appeared, and a third. We were trapped. Emerson calmly opened a door nearby and pushed me in. "Lock the door. Don't come out." The moment the door closed, I saw a dark figure pounce towards him. I hid behind the door, listening numbly to the fight outside, the terrifying roars of the undead, a man's stifled grunts, the splattering of flesh and blood, and the grating sound of the bayonet scraping against the wall. Several times, I wanted to rush out, but the doorknob wouldn't budge, until everything fell silent. After what felt like an eternity, I pushed open the door and stood in the blood-drenched hallway. There were pieces of corpses everywhere, and blood pooled like a lake. I stepped over it, my feet still sticky. It seemed endless. Trembling, I took out a flashlight and shone it over each face. All were faces of the transformed dead, with gaping black mouths and white, sharp fangs. The first few had been killed with a stab to the forehead, a swift death, but not the ones that followed. Bizarre, scattered bodies. It was clear that Emerson had handled them hastily and messily. There was even one not quite dead. Crawling with its remaining right hand, I covered my mouth, directing the flashlight's beam further away. A long trail of dragged blood appeared before me, sending a great shiver up my spine. No footprints. How could there be no footprints? If Emerson had walked away, he should have. Emerson wouldn't leave. Another voice in my head interrupted my thoughts. You know that, right? He would never leave, because I was still in that room. So why was he gone? With a thud, my trembling hands couldn't hold on to the flashlight. The only light rolled away on the ground. I covered my face with my hands in the dark, corpse-strewn hallway, sinking into despair. It was the first time in 3 years that Emerson had left me behind. Those eyes behind the glasses, always watching me, every moment, every corner, even if he was far away, even if separated by countless walls, even if the world turned upside down. I knew he was there. I hated him, despised him. But in this blood-drenched hospital, for the first time, I realized I had also grown accustomed to him, even dependent on him. In a city overrun with panic, I could think, if one day I couldn't survive, I could knock on Emerson's door. It seemed I had never considered what it would be like if he disappeared. No, I don't know. He is Emerson. How could Emerson possibly disappear? I picked up the flashlight from the ground, supported myself against the wall, and began walking further inside step by step. I wiped off the tears that had already flooded my face without my knowing. The trail of blood disappeared on the second floor, vanished into thin air. I saw neither the bodies of zombies nor Emerson's. Strangely, my hanging heart relaxed a bit. Sometimes, no news is good news. The unresolved is actually good news. Occasionally, the low growls of zombies echoed from afar through the empty hall. Chilling, but they were all far from me. I switched on my flashlight and found the pharmacy on the first floor. I hadn't forgotten why we had come this way. The pharmacy was in chaos, ransacked countless times, with human bones scattered about, wrapped in maggots and flies. I didn't dare stay long, being too close to the entrance, so I followed the dusty signs to the storeroom. The storeroom door had a lock, which snapped open as soon as I touched it. I pushed the door and entered. Luckily, not only was the room tidy, but the blood had also disappeared, an untouched virgin territory. I quickly started rummaging through the drawers. There weren't many medicines, but there were essentials like iodine, aspirin, ibuprofen, and surgical scissors and thread. My eyes lit up when I spotted a box of green injections, tetanus shots. I put down my backpack and hurriedly started packing the items. Just as I was packing, I heard footsteps outside and the beams of flashlights. I almost screamed in surprise, but soon my throat was stuck. There was more than one beam of light. It wasn't Emerson. A group of people had arrived. Without hesitation, I took a tetanus shot from the backpack, tucked it into my pocket, and then hid behind a cupboard with my pack. Unexpectedly, just as I hid, a shrill scream echoed in the corridor. The group panicked and fled into the storeroom. Zombies were chasing them. I rolled and crawled around, hiding randomly. After a frantic scuffle, several men finally killed the zombies. The beams of their flashlights all focused on me. Damn, there's still someone here. It had been about 3 months since I'd seen any living person other than Emerson, and I was a bit unaccustomed to it at first, but after a few words, I was sure they meant no harm and we exchanged some information. Why did you come to Renmin Hospital alone? They asked. I didn't come alone. I came with my friend. I opened my backpack and handed them some tetanus shots and other medicines. Have you seen him? They took the medicine, exchanging glances. Was that noise made by your friend? I nodded. We didn't see anyone, but we heard noises. Heading in that direction, they pointed east. My spirits lifted. Emerson was still alive. To the east was a traditional Chinese medicine clinic, also with a large hall. I immediately wanted to go, but they stopped me. I advise you not to go there. There are quite a few zombies. What can you do there as a young woman? Better come back to our base with us and then contact your friend. I paused, somewhat astonished at their words. The leader's gaze flickered. That commotion was quite big. Your friend might be in more danger than safety. If he was really safe and sound, he would have left already and not waited there for you. I faced their concerned looks, in a daze. Leaving, Emerson, right? Why hadn't I thought of that before? Isn't this what I've always wanted? There's a group of them, armed, with a base nearby. I could just go with them, but Emerson, he's a monster, not just any monster, a psychopathic killer. He said it himself. He wants to kill me. No, why should he kill me? Could it be that his stares weren't filled with desire and affection, but he simply saw me as prey? How dare he? How dare he? No, I need to confront him. No thanks. I started walking again, rejecting their offer. Hey you, he can't leave. I have the medicine. I clutched the tetanus shot in my pocket and hurriedly left them behind. Running east, I did the right thing. He saved my life. I can't just abandon him. Just excuses. Emerson could easily outfight all of them combined. 6 big men can't handle a single zombie. If Emerson can't make it out, neither can they. Just excuses. And maybe Emerson isn't really a killer. He's watched me for 3 years but never acted. He must be joking. Nothing he says is true. All just excuses. Whether it's worry, anger, or even fear, it's all fake. My canvas shoes stepped over flesh and corpses. I wanted to see him. I burst out of the dark corridor and found the situation indeed dire. The place was filled with zombies, forming a circle around the corridor, their eyes fixed on me upon hearing my footsteps. The air was filled with a strange, yet familiar scent, somehow. My head heated up and I boldly moved forward, looking down. In the dimly lit hall, there was a faint glow of a cigarette. Behind me was a familiar figure. He stood amidst a mountain of corpses, a bayonet in hand, a cigarette dangling from his lips. It didn't seem like he was in a dangerous hospital but rather on a street corner, quietly and patiently waiting for someone. Noticing the noise upstairs, he looked up. Our eyes met, and he slightly raised the corner of his mouth. His eyes crinkling behind his glasses, seemingly in a good mood. I felt a sting in my nose, a wave of grievance washing over me. What's there to smile about? I'm not having an easy time either. The surrounding zombies lunged at me, the path to the elevator completely blocked. Giselle, Emerson's calm voice came from the darkness. Jump down. I was startled. This wasn't just any ordinary floor. Jump down. Emerson beckoned with open arms. I'm here, I'm here. Just those 4 words suddenly gave me a surge of confidence. I climbed over the railing, past the protective glass, and before the zombies could reach me, I let go. After a brief moment of weightlessness, I fell into his arms. I was firmly caught in a warm, solid, and vibrant embrace, filled with the scent of lifeblood. Got you, he whispered in my ear. He then plucked the cigarette from his lips and flicked it away with a stylish gesture. As the cigarette hit the ground, a burst of flames shot up. The entire hall was engulfed in roaring flames, and the approaching zombies screamed in agony. Yet, Emerson calmly led me by the hand, pushing open the emergency exit and leaving the inferno behind the fireproof door. Looking at his broad back in front of me, the extreme fear I had felt for the past half hour receded. I knew those eyes were watching over me again. He still held me tight. A powerful presence that transcended everything. I was safe. After an intense ordeal, both of us were in bad shape. Without speaking, we sat down in the enclosed passageway, sharing the information we had. Emerson's account was straightforward. I was chased by a horde of zombies and ended up here. Remembering the limbs strewn across the hall, I retorted, who was chasing whom? Of course, someone was chasing me, Emerson replied, his eyelids flicking up suggestively. I met his gaze coolly. I just encountered a group of armed men, none daring to come to the east side. It is quite dangerous, Emerson said, leaning against the wall with a defeated air. Are you familiar with this place? Not really, I scoffed. Just now, I smelled something in your building's hallway. Couldn't figure it out at first, but then it hit me again in the hall. I glanced at the raging fire outside the safety door. Isn't that gasoline? Emerson's lips curled slightly. What are you implying? Did you do it on purpose? From locking me in the clinic alone, to the tetanus needles scattered in the pharmacy, to the fire that was clearly premeditated outside the door, everything in the past half hour felt too coincidental. His combat ability also made his so-called escape implausible. I was lured to his place, my home destroyed, a heavy sense of being manipulated. How could I be sure that this whole journey wasn't a setup? Even thinking back to the inexplicable appearance of zombies at my home that led to his injury seemed highly suspicious. It was as if Emerson had intentionally taken me away from the safety of my residence and thrown me into the perilous hospital, then staged his disappearance. The moment he lit a cigarette in the darkness, rather than fighting zombies, seemed more like he was waiting for me to fall into his trap. Emerson's smile slowly widened. Then why would I do all that? I stared at him for a long time. Because you want to kill me. His smile froze. You want to kill me, but I've been too alert. So you couldn't find the chance. So you tried to dispel my suspicions first, then find an opportunity to strike, I said, no longer holding back. Dropping me off and then rescuing me was part of your plan, exploiting the suspension bridge effect. Emerson seemed surprised at first but then calmly nodded. Pretty much. I caught my breath. No excuses, no lies, no explanations. He really wanted to kill me. My initial reaction wasn't terror, but helplessness, a suffocating helplessness. Like being thrown into water, even the tip of my nose felt a hint of sourness. As I was numbed by the realization, Emerson leaned in, asking in his usual gentle manner, what do you plan to do now? I didn't know. By his side, I didn't need to make decisions. I seemed to have grown accustomed to that. Seeing me silent and confused, Emerson patiently schemed for me. The zombies are all locked inside. They'll be burned up soon. You could go with that group. Did you get the tetanus needle? I raised my eyebrows. I need a tetanus shot, he said with a wry smile, lifting his injured arm. His shirt sleeves had been torn and his bandages soaked with blood. The intense scent of blood attracted the zombies, now burning like pillars of fire, violently banging against the door, trying to tear us apart. My fingertips grazed the syringe bulging in my pocket. Yes, I still held his life in my hands. If I didn't administer the tetanus shot, he might die. Any infection could kill him. Don't give it to him, don't give it to him. Don't give it to him, reason frantically warned me, but I couldn't control myself. Gently, I reached for his arm. Your wound has opened. I heard my voice tremble, desperate, uncontrollable. Does it hurt? Tears fell on the bandage. In that moment, Emerson's pupils constricted, and the usual mocking smile on his face vanished. He grabbed me by the neck, kissed me fiercely, then lifted me against the wall, devouring my lips. I felt crushed, worn down, overtaken, imprisoned in his embrace. Emerson killing me. Why doesn't it feel like what I imagined? It's almost funny, just a door away, the burning zombies raged. Yet we embraced and tore at each other obliviously. I've been in love before, but never experienced such a soul-consuming kiss. In the end, I had to cover his mouth to stop his relentless conquest. What are you doing? Emerson's eyes were pitch black. His breath fell through the gaps in my fingers. You touch me. But don't allow me to kiss you back. He was always polite, except when entwined he was not smiling, cruel and domineering, doing as he pleased. Even his kisses carried a strong sense of hatred. This terrified yet fascinated me. I just couldn't understand this man. The fire grew bigger, finally quenching his lust. Emerson injected the needle, treated his wound, and led me away from the corridor. Not far away, a skirmish had drawn the zombies away from us, making our escape smooth. In the devastated garden with skies alight, I looked at his profile, feeling a strange sensation. This psychopathic killer. He was the only reality in a twisted world. Why do you kiss me if you want to kill me? I asked, as if possessed. What do you think killing is? I honestly replied, a crime. He adjusted his glasses. No, it's a great endeavor, a great endeavor. I vaguely remembered this term. It seemed to appear in ancient alchemy. It referred to those endeavors worth striving for one's whole life. Killing is not just a skill, nor merely to satisfy desires. Those who kill for mundane purposes or meticulously plan out of a lustful desire are filthy and contemptible. So there's such a hierarchy of disdain among killers. Thinking about it, his words indeed encompassed most killers. If it's not for achieving some purpose or because one is inherently twisted and enjoys killing, then why kill? Everyone is born with their own destiny. Mine is to kill, he said, looking at his hand that held the knife. In this process, I am perfected. That's quite severe. So when will I die? It should have been 3 years ago. Then how am I still alive? Emerson gave me a mysterious look. Initially, it was because you were very vigilant. I compared our heights, builds, strengths, and his cunning nature, along with his omnipresent snooping. How does it matter how vigilant I am? It would be easy for you to kill me, right? Emerson looked down, his hair softly falling on his forehead, appearing somewhat defeated and submissive. But the more I observed you, the harder I found it to lay a hand on you. Oh, he gently ruffled my hair. It's just a cut from head to ground. You're so adorable. How could I bear to let you die so easily? I really thank you for that. I was wrong. How could I possibly understand this man's mind through conversation? I'm not insane. Anyway, you're going to kill me eventually. Aren't you tired of beating around the bush? Hearing this, a shadow of sadness suddenly crossed Emerson's face, and he shook his head with a bitter smile. Giselle, I just feel that all of this is unfair to me. What? Did I hear that wrong? A psychopathic killer thinks the universe is being unfair. Did you see me saying anything? I almost burst out laughing. What's unfair? Laughing at him, he looked even more aggrieved, about to speak, when suddenly his gaze sharpened towards the front, his intact left hand threw out a military dagger, shielding me behind him. A group of about 7 or 8 men appeared, each wielding various weapons. The one in front was holding a gun. The moment they saw me, their eyes lit up. Who are you? The bearded leader asked in a gruff voice. Emerson lazily raised his hand. Injured, came to find some medicine at the hospital. Did you start the fire? The gun was pointed at him. No, Emerson pointed towards the front door of the ongoing fight, completely deflecting the blame. They were about to interrogate further when a horde of zombies burst out from behind. No one had time to talk anymore. Both sides immediately tangled into a fight. Emerson, holding my hand, took advantage of the chaos to hide behind them, only slashing at a zombie when it neared us. After finishing, he pushed his glasses up with a helpless look, as if he was particularly embarrassed for me to see him killing zombies so effortlessly. TSK, quite the idle burden. This group's fighting ability was far superior to the youths from before. They fought their way out of the hospital and jumped into an SUV. The SUV was reinforced with spikes added to the bumper and thickened glass. It looked pitch black from the outside. Let's go, someone urged from behind. As they spoke, they pushed me. A wave of fear washed over me. Even before the zombie outbreak, a girl being pushed into a strange vehicle was akin to kidnapping, let alone now. I looked anxiously at Emerson. He smiled at me, protectively placing his hand around my waist. Now it was his turn to be pushed a bit. He turned back and said softly, we're going. Like a scholar without a temper, I breathed a sigh of relief. If Emerson was being gentlemanly, then everything was under his control. He accompanied me onto the vehicle, sitting next to me, the fabric rustling. The familiar warmth helped me stabilize my heart in this completely strange environment. The SUV charged forward recklessly. Our journey was filled with surprises but no real danger. We stopped in an open area and walked into an air raid shelter. The shelter was deep and complex, with the narrowest paths only wide enough for one person and sections that were flooded with deep water. Bones were scattered all along the path, from both animals and humans. After emerging from the water, we found ourselves in an abandoned stone chamber with a fire burning in the middle. 3 people sat around it, surrounded by piles of supplies, and the walls were adorned with various weapons. I had heard that every city is divided into upper and lower layers, with an underground world that is just as vast and interconnected. The homeless, fugitives, and cave explorers formed this underground society. Clearly, this base was part of it. These fringe members had not only survived but were thriving. The 2 men and a woman guarding the place looked at us in surprise. The bearded man leading them laughed heartily. Found them at the hospital. The mention of the hospital sent a wave of fear across the woman's face. Is the doctor there? He was there when we arrived, the bearded man said, his tone turning bitter. Riding in his broken-down car, almost got him killed by us. I paused, confused, and looked at Emerson. This man had a reputation in the underworld, and enemies too. Emerson casually flicked his gaze. Who's the doctor? A survivor who roams around the hospital and nearby streets, skilled in setting traps and using others to kill, always works alone. A lone wolf. Oh, the bearded man handed me a can. Did you run into him? We met many people, Emerson replied, opening a beer with one hand, all armed. We haven't asked for your names yet. The bearded man extended his hand with a lecherous look. Before I could react, Emerson's slender hand took his. Emerson, Giselle, are you a couple? The bearded man asked impatiently, his gaze burning into me. The other men in the base looked at me the same way. There were 10 men here, but only 1 woman. That was why they had gone through so much trouble to invite us back. My heart raced, but Emerson coolly turned back, his eyes mocking behind his glasses, as if asking, "Are we?" The silence in the cave was so profound you could hear a pin drop. Knowing the fate that awaited a lone woman, I quickly said, "Yes." My voice was so sharp it startled the bats. Emerson took a sip of his beer, his lips curling into a contented smile. "I don't see it," grumbled the bearded man, eyeing us both. How can you not?" Emerson casually pulled out 2 shiny objects from his pocket and put them on. Then he casually took my hand. The cold diamond ring brushed against the sensitive inside of my ring finger, sending a shiver of ticklish fear. In the dim light of the cave and under the watchful eyes of the villains, he boldly put a ring on my finger. I couldn't refuse. "We're married," he said, meeting my gaze and kissing my ring finger. Then, with a leisurely sweep of his eyes across the crowd, he asked, "Can't you tell?" As the night deepened, they gave us a cave to rest in. I hesitated, unwilling to enter. I kept touching the diamond ring on my finger in the dark corridor. I had inexplicably become Emerson's wife. But did that mean I had to fulfill a wife's duties? "You're not his wife, are you?" A voice with a stubbly beard sounded from behind me, and I felt a harsh pinch on my backside. "What are you doing?" I jumped up in shock. "Show some respect." Haha, the man laughed while taking a drag on his cigarette, unconcerned. "Eating our food, using our stuff, and talking about respect. You're spouting nonsense." I glanced towards a nearby cave. "My husband is right there." "Then go and tell him we want to have our way with you. See if he agrees." He laughed, revealing yellow teeth. Anger reddened my eyes as I stormed off, only to be grabbed by the waist and pinned against the wall. Hey, I'm not finished talking yet. What's the hurry?" He leaned against the wall, blew smoke in my face, and caressed my cheek with his rough fingers. "Honestly, in these times, how do you expect to survive? Sticking with 1 man or a bunch of men? Which do you think will last longer? Just lie back and endure, and you can live comfortably. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that?" I couldn't listen anymore. With a slap, I broke free of his hand and rushed towards the cave. He laughed loudly behind me, utterly shameless. After order collapsed, such incidents became all too common. Wives taken, husbands who resist get killed. Some husbands willingly offer up their wives in order to survive. Women have become mere commodities to be traded. Burning with rage, I burst through the door, only to be stunned by the scene before me. That woman was in Emerson's room. The underground base was dimly lit. Emerson sat on an old wire bed, his legs slightly apart, his knees forming a relaxed angle, light cascaded down, making him appear like a silent deity. The woman sat on the floor like a dog, looking up and speaking coyly to him. Brother, you're so handsome, why don't you stay? As long as you're good to me, they won't mess with you. This place has the most resources around. My head buzzed, and I instinctively stepped back. But they had already seen me. Both fell silent as if by mutual agreement. The woman looked slightly embarrassed, but he remained calm, as if I was the one out of place in the room. The atmosphere froze momentarily, then the woman, with a victorious smile, began to act even more coquettish, weakly reaching for his thigh. Brother, I'll keep you company tonight. I know how to make you comfortable. Not tonight. Emerson grabbed her wrist and pushed her away. The woman looked into his eyes to be sure he meant what he said before slowly getting up. As she passed by me, she gave a defiant glance. She was younger than me, with a full chest and proud curves, highlighted unabashedly by the clothes they had given her. My mind was a mess, and I stood there, shaking. Emerson lay down, resting his head. Let's sleep. No further words, no explanations. He didn't even look at me. I clenched my fists, the diamond ring digging into my palm. There was still half a bed left inside. I climbed up and curled up at the foot of it, but I couldn't sleep at all. The smell of a bearded man's cigarette smoke kept lingering at the tip of my nose. There was also Emerson and that girl sitting on the floor, fawning over him. Not today. What about tomorrow? The day after tomorrow? What if I don't come back? My chest was about to explode, but I had no way to vent. Just clutching the hard diamond ring, trembling with fear, the light clicked back on. Emerson sat up. What's wrong? I froze for a moment. Why are you crying? His tone, inexplicably, held a hint of uncontrollable euphoria. I wiped the tears from my cheeks, shivering like this. You won't be able to sleep. He forcefully pulled me up by my wrist. Why are you crying? A sourness surged in my chest. It's nothing. If you don't tell me, I'll start imagining things. Emerson stared at me intently, determined to pry the words from my mouth. After a long silence, I said, they said some disgusting things. A strange expression crossed Emerson's face, as if to say, is that all? He stood up with a darkened face. Where are you going? Emerson, irritated, shook the cigarettes on the bedside. I looked at the leftover triangular military dagger and lay back down. Just as I had touched the bed, I heard a muffled thud from outside. Something felt off, so I walked to the door. Emerson stood in the middle of the cave, casually lighting a cigarette by the campfire, casting a long shadow on the wall, and there was no one else but him. All was quiet and peaceful. I went back to sleep. I don't know how long I had been dozing when I felt the head of the bed sink. He had returned. Outside, there were also the low growls of zombies. Don't sleep. He rubbed my head, seeming to like the texture of my hair. I suddenly sat up, instantly awake. The entrance was winding and deep. How could zombies be there? Someone screamed at the top of their lungs, shattering the quiet underworld. Others noticed the anomaly too. I heard them scrambling to their feet, desperately fighting the zombies. There were devouring and wailing everywhere. Damn, things are looking bad. Let's go help out. Emerson led me outside. The air was thick with the smell of blood. The living were visited by the dead, from fiercely resisting to barely alive. Emerson threw his lighter into a pile of materials covered with a black tarp. I didn't know what was inside, but it exploded instantly, engulfing both the living and the dead. Emerson grabbed a fire extinguisher nearby, holding my hand with one hand and the canister with the other, humming a tune, leisurely walking deeper into the cave. Emerson seemed very familiar with this place too, wading through the water several times, shaking off the zombies. Zombies can't swim, they could only walk on the bottom, very slowly. But the smoke filled the tunnels below, blurring all sense of direction. Just as we found a metal ladder leading upwards, the bearded man burst out of the smoke, brandishing a dagger. Fuck, you opened the manhole cover, he coughed, lunging at Emerson with the dagger. Emerson opened the fire extinguisher and sprayed it fiercely at his face. Ah, 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 the bearded man collapsed, covering his eyes in agony. Emerson expressionlessly swung the fire extinguisher, striking him down. The bear-like man fell, blood streaming from his head. Emerson crouched down, looking down at him from above. Grandpa, spare my life. Grandpa, spare my life. The bearded man frantically kowtowed in his direction. My wife cried. Emerson spoke in a soft voice. My Giselle is not a fragile person. She wouldn't be scared to death just because you spouted some nonsense. Tell me honestly, what did you do? The man with the beard mumbled nervously, unable to speak clearly. Emerson took the knife from his hand. "Let me borrow this." No longer able to deceive, the bearded man blurted out, "I couldn't suppress my thieving instincts and touched your sister-in-law. I was blind to not recognize the greatness before me. I owe her an apology." "Oh," Emerson responded emotionlessly, "which hand?" Realizing what Emerson intended to do, the bearded man's face, covered in white powder, showed sheer terror. He backed away on the ground, pleading, "No, please no." He tried to run, but Emerson stepped on his right hand, driving the knife point into his wrist. Let it be, I pleaded in horror. "Let it be." Emerson pushed up his blood-smeared glasses, looking civilized. "Fine, as you wish." He grabbed the bearded man by the hair, and amid his screams, dragged him into the sewer. Leaving him to wail in the filthy water, clutching his bleeding hand. "Got any water?" Emerson climbed back up, shivering. I fetched a bottle of mineral water from my backpack. He washed his hands and cleaned his glasses, looking somewhat relieved. Then he pulled me up the iron ladder nailed to the wall, and we returned to the surface. Outside, it was still dark, and a few zombies wandered the block. As soon as we emerged, we became targets, but Emerson was a good fighter. He pulled me into a repair shop. Just as the door was about to close, a shadow rushed in. It was the girl from the underground base. Her clothes were even more tattered, exposing much of her skin. She looked at Emerson with a mixture of respect and fear, her gaze no longer flirtatious. I pulled a jacket from my bag and handed it to her. "Are you alone?" She hesitated, then accepted and draped it over herself. "I don't know. Brother Emerson woke me up and told me to go ahead." I followed him up from the bottom of the iron ladder. Brother Emerson. If she was following Emerson, then I had nothing to do with it. I dropped the food from my backpack and wandered into the back storage room. No sooner had I entered than Emerson followed. His steps were like those of a hunter, his gaze unabashedly possessive. "You don't seem very happy." "Should I be?" In the storage room, there was a workbench, and I carefully moved to the other side. "You just killed someone." "The zombies bit them to death." "What does that have to do with me?" Emerson's slender fingers caressed the workbench, a dangerous aura enveloping him. The bearded man said, "It was you who opened the manhole cover. You invited the wolves in." Emerson scoffed. "Don't tell me you didn't see the human bones in that cave. You know what they eat to get so fat." I felt nauseous. "I did all this for you." He casually played with a tool resembling an awl. "Shut up. No one kills people just because of sexual harassment." I threw something from the table at him. He walked towards me, ignoring the flying duct tape and wires, hands in his pockets. "Giselle, you and I both know you're not some naive saint without a brain. Stop making excuses. You just don't want to bear the guilt of someone dying because of you." Cornered against the wall, tears welled up in my eyes, and as I tried to push him away, he lifted me onto the workbench. TSK, brought to tears. His pale fingers wiped away my tears. "You're angry because you were lying, weren't you? Your distress isn't really about the harassment, and those you curse to die in your heart aren't those people, am I right?" He looked through the tire-formed wall hole at the girl. Panic surged within me, but he didn't give me a chance to escape. Emerson, bracing his arms on the workbench, trapped me with his body and slowly said into my ear, "Giselle, you're just afraid I might not want you." His words were light, but they thundered in my ears. Something inside me tore apart. A strong sense of shame surged through me. "Listen to yourself. How ridiculous you sound. You're a pervert. You've been stalking and spying on me for 3 years." I pushed him away in frustration, "And yet it only took you a day to realize that you can't live without me." He stood his ground, his gaze intense. "What's so hard to understand? The apocalypse suits you perfectly. You're a winner with the power to do whatever you want. Why else do you think I knocked on your door?" "Oh, it's all just for survival," he mocked. "So, if I take her home, you wouldn't mind, right?" "Of course not. Is there any damn thing between him and me? He's not a reliable man. He's just a pervert who wants to kill me. Being with him is merely a temporary measure. I just want to survive. That's all. But, I want to say I don't care, but the moment I open my mouth, tears uncontrollably start flowing, understanding everything yet still utterly defeated. I'm greedy for him." Seeing my tears, he laughed. His smile was manic, his eyes feverishly bright. "See, you claim you only want to be my dog, but you can't even do that." Emerson proudly grasped my wrist, forcefully wedged between my legs, caressing my waist and moving upward as if dancing a waltz with me. "You depend on me, you want me, you desire me, but Giselle, think carefully. If you want to possess me exclusively, what exactly am I to you? His breath was hot, his lips so close they were almost within reach, but I dodged them. We have no future. Why, you yourself said you wanted to kill me, so, this also upsets you. Emerson was too sensitive to my emotions. He knelt, holding my face and monopolizing my view. I've never felt the desire to kill anyone else. You are my first and only target. Over these 3 years, you were the only one. Even touching others disgusts me. I tried to think despite my dizzy head. Are you saying you love me? Yes, he answered without hesitation. Ha ha. God knows why I felt happy, mad, all of it's mad. Maybe I will die. But doesn't everyone eventually? Anyway, he has already taken the most precious thing from me. I grabbed his hair and pressed my lips to his, wrapping my arms around his neck. He immediately turned the tables, pinning me to the workbench. Biting me while roughly pulling down my pants, the waistband stuck at my hips, revealing my pale lower abdomen in the air. He picked up a small awl nearby, lovingly licked the dimple on my waist, sending shivers through me. It will hurt a bit. His voice was hoarse, filled with immense love. What was he going to do? Never mind. I closed my eyes. A needle-like sensation spread across the softest skin of my lower abdomen, quickly becoming intense and unbearable. I felt like I was being tortured, breaking out in a cold sweat. Amid the roar of machinery, he considerately gave me his hand, our fingers interlocking. Behind a wall of stacked tires, I saw that girl sitting on a chair eating bread. While I lay on the workbench, I dedicated myself to Emerson's pleasure. After what felt like an eternity, long enough for my clothes to become completely soaked, the machine in his hands finally stopped. He kissed my lower abdomen again, where there was a tattoo tinged with blood, a line of English letters imprisoned by chains. Ray, his name. I thought I was going to die, I said, exhausted, barely managing a weak smile. Not now, not like this, he replied tenderly, combing through my long hair. Have you already figured out how you're going to kill me? Yes, Emerson said, his presence enveloping me with a peaceful aura. With a lifetime. Giselle. Epilogue. After leaving the auto repair shop, Emerson and I took the girl to a nearby community. I handed her a small note from my coat pocket, written by the young people at the hospital. They helped me and showed me the way. You should be well taken care of with them, and they won't make you do that kind of thing. Tears suddenly filled her eyes, clear and piercing. At that moment, she looked as innocent as someone her age should. Big sister, I'm sorry, she apologized softly. We both knew what for. There's nothing to be sorry about. It was all his trickery, I said, waving my hand dismissively. And yet, I was moved. After saying goodbye to the girl, the world suddenly felt more free. The weather was nice, the sun was bright, the zombies weren't very active, and there were other people around. Emerson and I held hands. I find something very strange. What is it? You could just say it directly, I complained, glaring at him. It was a tumultuous day, truly thrilling. If you like someone, why not just say it openly? If I said it, I'd just be seen as a pervert. Worse, I really am a pervert, and there's no washing it off. He flirtatiously touched my lower abdomen, hinting at something. The pain from the tattoo made that area particularly sensitive, and I almost couldn't move my legs. But he caught me in his arms and kissed me. Actually, you haven't laid a hand on me in 3 years, and I've gotten used to it. Sometimes I can't tell if you're serious. If you really pursued me, I probably would have said yes. If Emerson put his efforts into proper channels, no one could resist him, including me. Why should I pursue you? I care about you enough as it is, Emerson said, clearly irritated, adjusting his glasses. I watch every move you make, every step you take. I know all your habits. My whole world revolves around you. I'm crazy about you. My world already consists only of you. So why should I make the last move? Why can't you give me even a fraction of a response? He was so righteous in his frustration, it was almost amusing. So you're just feeling aggrieved about this? Yes, I think it was more than just a desire for revenge. He was afraid, too. All his strategic planning was backed by a nervous longing. I was his deity. He yearned for me to glance his way, like dancing on a tightrope. Unable to bear any misstep. So are you satisfied now? Barely, he said, comfortably squinting in the sunlight. You care about my life. You want to be with me more than other men. You get jealous. You're even willing to die for me. We don't have much time. I can't ask for more. Want more. He opened the door. He led me inside, saying, when it comes to affection, you're way behind me. I paused, taken aback. This isn't your home. It is. He replied as he embraced me and we collapsed onto the sofa. I have more than one place, it's to take care of you. I fell into a deep sleep in his arms, and in many ways, he was my deity.